How's it going, everybody? This is the Top Platform Season 2, Episode 2, Rowe Wobbled My Dad. I'm your host, Chi, joined by Smash Department residents Alex, aka Dash, Hassel, aka... Hassel, what do you go by nowadays?
I think it's still Tyrone. I haven't really thought about it.
And Graham, aka Hi-Fi. Today we're also joined by a very special guest, Tyler Bass, aka Sharkz.
Hey,
Say hi to people, Sharkz.
What's up?
Alright, so if you guys don't know, this is a 60 to 90 minute show for NC Melee by NC Melee. We use this platform to talk about local results and controversy, current national drama, and other Melee-related topics. At this point, I'm sure you're wondering why we have Sharkz here. Well, we've had a lot of talk about wobbling recently, so why not do an episode about it? Oh, and instead of having a game show, we'll just be subjecting Sharkz to one question lightning round.
Okay. That'll be very interesting.
So actually, let's start off with how we've been doing. So Sharkz, you go first. We haven't seen you at a tournament in a while. What's been going on with you?
Okay. Well, yeah, I haven't been to a tournament since the new PR season. Basically, since TD Mail died. Not that I like in-house tournaments, but they're not my thing. So just haven't been to one of those, and I've been having like a class thing on Monday. So,
Cool.
but hopefully by January, I should start going to the Monday tournaments again. So y'all should see me there. But yeah, life is pretty good. Big House was pretty fun. Not as good as 5 or 6, but still pretty good.
Why did you refer to it as a class thing?
I'm taking Japanese classes on Mondays right now.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to hear the details.
Yeah.
Taking them at NCSU.
I think the people need to know.
They're outside NCSU.
Are they by like Centennial? In the house?
It's yes, exactly.
In that
I don't know
house?
where that is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Castle,
Tell me it's just some old Japanese dude in a house. Right?
It's like a bunch of old Japanese ladies that I know that work there.
Like the dude from Karate Kid is just teaching you guys Japanese.
Heck yeah, I'm down for
That'd be
that.
hype.
Castle, what's going on with you?
I'm apparently beating all of them DVA PR. So.
Oh, that's kind of hype.
Cool.
Who'd you beat most recently on that play?
Nurok.
Oh, nice. I like him.
Is he even ranked?
Like asked for a rematch, but he had to host, and he like didn't want to put that I won. It's very interesting.
Yo.
All right, Alex, what has been going on with you?
Not working.
I haven't been playing a lot of Fox McCloud for sure. I've been playing a lot of Peach, and oddly enough, even though it was kind of a meme at first, she's actually a ton of fun, and I've had significantly more fun playing the game recently because of it. So I suggest people not just pick up secondaries or anything, but try learning characters that are super different than what you're used to, because I couldn't even move around with her to save my life. And now it's not great, but it's not bad. You can ask my boy Peyton. He's played it a good bit. And it's getting there, and it's a lot of fun. And it was a nice little spark for me.
That's pretty awesome.
Graham, what's been going on with you?
I've been in a similar boat to Tyler. I haven't been to anything this season except Chapel Thrills Durham Bulls edition that no one went to. And the good news, though, yeah, Blop was there. That was the first Blop tournament, actually. That was where he was invented. But I can go to NCSUs on Mondays now, so I'm looking forward to that. Going Game Fest, maybe Hornet's Nest, and Famicom. So a bunch of stuff in the next few weeks.
Yeah. It's awesome. Are you going to quit NetPlay?
For a while, I think. Something that I've noticed is once you get to like Platinum, nobody plays you. They just decline all your requests.
That's super true. You don't request in Platinum, by the way. All you do is post and just wait for someone to take it. Sometimes you have to requeue like 8 times, but that's how it works.
Yeah. I don't know.
Isn't there an FM Discord that like works well with that? Like, can't you request an FM Discord and then?
FM Discord is like, it's
the rank
like
is awful in it.
Yeah, like the level of play is definitely a little higher, but it's so hard to like really take advantage of the ranked system. And I don't play net play friendlies unless it's with someone in NC that I know.
Yeah.
So it kind of defeats the purpose.
Fair enough. As for me, I've been a few tournaments this season, and well, I went to the Arcadian, but I did like about where I expected, and I've been doing a lot of studying recently in Sheik for Sheik, so hoping to have some time to play Karn and Jack and Ian on Saturday and see where that goes. But okay, so usually we tend to start off shows by talking about national results and national occurrences. So first off, do we have any thoughts about DreamHack Denver? More specifically, like, what do we think about Hbox going into, like, do we all agree that Hbox is the person to beat in the last like quarter of 2017?
Yes. And he will be, except for Summit, just because of Armada's
Yeah.
him winning 4 times. Otherwise, yes, he's definitely the person to beat this season.
Yeah.
He's kind of been the person to beat for a while now. Just like, I mean, obviously there's Armada, but like I feel like he's been like the biggest like stop for most like players that are like right on the come up of top 10.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's as definitive as the person to beat. I feel like I can't just write out Armada that easily.
Armada's been taking a break.
Yeah.
Yeah, to say the least.
But I don't know. I just think it's gonna be interesting. I would actually, oddly enough, I'd really like to see Hbox push, and take the #1 spot for 2017. I think that'd be really interesting and cool.
That would be a lot for his legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it'd be good. Yeah, and people who don't agree can suck it. No,
All right,
but I just think that's whatever. People hate Hbox.
Graham, let me ask you this, since we all agree, and you have as the Jigglypuff main, you ostensibly have the most Jigglypuff bias. What do you think? Like, what would it take for you to put Hbox? Like, what would it take for you to not treat Hbox as a favorite? Like, what would have to happen in the next 3 to 4 tournaments for you to be convinced that Hbox probably deserves #2 at the end of the year? Because right now, like, if he keeps going on his current trajectory, I think he deserves #1 for the year. But like, what would it take? Like, what combination of events would it take for him to be at #2 or maybe even lower?
Well, if he lost to a I don't know what it is now, top 5 or top 6, if you want to include Plup. If he lost to a player below that, I think that kind of automatically knocks him down a rung. But I mean, it would be hard to say. Even if he gets like second to like Mango once and then Plup once and then Leffen once or whatever, like his resume right now is really convincing in terms of the number of tournaments that he's won, really. Because like, you know, Mango has a few good wins and Leffen has a few good wins, but it just kind of feels like every event lately has been Hbox in grand finals winning it. So I don't know.
How much do you think recency bias plays into that? Because I mean, Armada really dominated the first half of 2017, and his worst loss still Plup on the year.
Right, a recency bias, a ton. Like, yeah, I mean, a lot of this is just sort of Melee players having really short-term memories as far as what's happening on the national level. But yeah, like overall for the year, I'm not so sure I would put Hbox there yet. I think Armada. I mean, I would have to look at the data, but I would say just off the top of my head, it's close. But I'd still probably say Armada.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I framed the question in terms of trajectory, because I think Armada is still like #1, but like at the pace that Hbox is going, he could easily overtake. And so it's a question of like, okay, what's going to slow down his momentum? And I mean, yeah, I think a loss outside the top 10 and like maybe a couple second or third places. But I mean, it's also all dependent on how everybody else around him does too. Like,
true.
So
yeah, it's weird because I think that at the moment, Hbox does have a slight head-to-head right now, right on the year.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Yeah,
he does.
On Armada.
And I
think
think
he's 4-3.
Okay, and I think that's really the only thing that keeps it close, as silly as it sounds, because it reminds me a lot of when Leffen and oh god, who was it? Leffen and somebody else were fighting for the same spot. I think it was Leffen and Hbox were fighting for the 3 spot one year maybe, and Leffen was slightly knocked like a really small amount for being less consistent but having higher peaks. This was like during the last year, obviously, whereas Hbox was significantly more consistent, but his peaks weren't as high that year. It's similar to that. I mean, Armada is more consistent, even though Hbox has been amazing, obviously, but Armada's still been more consistent. I mean, it's like his worst placing was what, the Big House, right?
Yeah.
And that's crazy. He lost to Plup, and that's his worst placing. So he's objectively more consistent, but I think the thing that puts it in Armada's favor is the fact that their peaks are still arguably similar. I mean, they're
Yeah.
both winning tournaments and big tournaments at that. So the only thing that I think makes it close from Hbox's side is the head-to-head, and so I think if he loses the head-to-head, he's going to lose the number one spot.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good way to frame it. Yeah, so that's sort of, I mean, so Summit sounds like Summit is a big deal. So maybe we should also talk about.
Well,
like,
before we
okay,
switch
yeah.
to that, Reddit was kind of all over this when it happened, but you really had to be there to understand it. After Big House, when Hbox won, I'm not kidding, in which there was no applause. People literally got up and left. It was weird. It felt weird because there was no applause. Everyone just got up and said okay and went out the door, and that was it. It was so strange. I had never seen anything like it before.
Wow.
That's kind of funny, actually.
And it was just like, is this guy, like, I like his play, I enjoy watching Fox Puff, but it's like, is this guy really hurting or seen that much? Or like, and whose fault is that? It's just kind of strange to me.
It is weird, man. I was kind of talking about it in our other chat the other day. It's kind of like and I don't really think it's to this degree, but I think it's how a lot of people view it. It's kind of like how in football, like there was teams that would just run the ball a lot and were really good at dominant O lines, and they would just consistently get first downs all game by running the ball. And nobody really wanted to watch that. They weren't breaking big runs or anything. You know, they were never really throwing the ball unless they had to. As opposed to when you see like the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots get a lot of hate, but I mean, they launched that thing. You know, every play they're throwing the ball.
You got a
and
reason
people like to watch that. You know, so I mean, it really that's how the world is. That's what people want to see at the end of the day. And even if they can't understand it, you know, at the end of the day, a lot of people probably don't understand Hbox's play, and why it can be exciting to watch at times. It's not always, but at times.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that's just how it's going to be.
It's kind of a meme that Hbox is boring or like lame and not fun to watch, and like it kind of like once like people hear it enough on Reddit and stuff like that, they start to just actually believe it. And it's kind of just, I don't know, they don't really have a real opinion anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's because like I feel bad chiming in on this because as a Puff main, I love watching Hbox play Foxes because I feel like I'm learning a ton. But even in spite of that, I feel like watching him fight all the different Foxes and all those different styles is really engaging. And
I agree.
It's I mean, he's come a long way from being kind of the I'm going to bear in the corner and not interact with you to really having to like fight and get these gimps and rest setups and conversions off of just like the strayest hit in neutral that at this level of play leads to absolutely nothing, but he gets a stock out of it. And like clutch last stock rests. It's hard for me to see why someone wouldn't think that's exciting, but again, I'm just super biased as a Puff player, so I can't like
they already don't want him to win.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing if you're just like, I don't want Hbox to win, but people say like Hbox is killing Melee. It's really bad for the game on like a national scale to have him in grand finals for like viewership reasons. And that, I mean, if you don't like watching Hbox win, like I totally get that, but I'm just not convinced I'm just not convinced it's like bad for the game really. Well, I mean, maybe 2 years ago, but the way he plays now, I wouldn't say so.
I think they already don't want him to win, and they come to those conclusions because they already have the basis of, oh, I don't want him to win because I think he's lame, so I'm just gonna.
Right. Yeah.
There's a phrase for that. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called.
Confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. What it is.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. I had something to say, but I answered something pretty well. Probably talk a little bit about Summit. So Summit is obviously like the stakes are huge for Summit as a tournament itself. So before we get to that, maybe we should talk about like what do we think about kind of the voting system of Summit? Like there's a lot of controversy about that this year, especially because of how much money was raised and how little of it we as a community see. It just goes all into the Summit pot and all into Summit operations. And like I just wanted to know, I'm a TO, so I have very specific thoughts on this, but like how do you guys feel about the Summit voting system? Graham, I know you think it's like I mean, you can talk about it in any way that you want, because I know that you have thoughts on it as a game, like essentially, which it is. Like bidding wars are all games in a sense, but like maybe like we'll start with Graham. Like, what do you think about Summit and the voting system?
I'll be completely honest. I don't know too much about the specifics of how it works because I'm not the kind of person that would ever like really care about something like that to the point that I'd be really disappointed if like player X gets in, but player Y doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that the point about like all that money being kind of like funneled out of the community as being sort of like a legitimate point against what they're doing, because like you have a lot of people who are not going to be like making a lot of money from their locals or whatever, much less nationals, kind of just like buying votes and voting for their favorite player or whatever. And the return on that is like watching Summit is a pretty cool experience. It's a good entertainment thing, I guess, but then it's like after that weekend is over, that's kind of it. There's no sort of there's no investment back in the community from it, I guess, which as far as I understand it, Beyond the Summit's a business, so they're trying to make money, which makes sense. But yeah, I think as a community it would be better if people were a bit more conscious of like what they were doing with money they're putting towards something like that. But at the end of the day, if you want to vote for your favorite player, it's your money. You can do what you want.
As a bit of context, the previous Beyond Summits, they've funneled some of the money towards like you buy the merchandise from certain tournament shops, and then like that would go towards those tournament series themselves. So
this one
that's
didn't do
why
that at
that's
all?
like the pivot made people feel weird. But, Alex Hassel.
Hassel took his headset off, so he doesn't know what's going on.
Sorry.
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. Actually, I try to actually disassociate whenever the Summit voting comes around.
Yeah.
Not even really necessarily because I just agree with it objectively. I mean, I do think it's silly and insane the way it's the logistics of it, I should say. But it just doesn't interest me, the whole voting process. Honestly, I just want to see the good players play. And I think the Summit's a great place to see the best players play because they get time to rest and solely compete in like against each other and plan for each other. So you see the best out of the best players. So I could care less if Mafia gets in and gets washed. He's just wasting my time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think they should just bring the top 16 and let them go at it. And if you want to get in the Summit, do better throughout the year.
Be a top 16 player, and you'll get funded.
Yeah. I mean, I maybe if there was a section before Summit where we voted on like top 50, top 100 players or whatever to come and hang out and train with top players and do side events. But when it comes to the bracket, I mean, I don't like infinite numbers. I mean, he's cool. I've met him. He's actually nice, but I didn't care to see him get washed. You know what I mean?
He beat Westballs, to be fair.
That's true. That is true. But and it's just not worth the hassle. It always causes drama. It's who has the most money, who's gonna eat the most onions. It's stupid. I mean, I don't. They need to fix the logistics. That's all I want to say. Because the voting process would be fine. I think if it was just there was something better going on, and I haven't even thought about it enough to have any good ideas about it. But it's just silly, I think.
Tyler.
Just quick thoughts on it. Beyond the Summit's a business. What they do is smart. They make a lot of money from it. It seems like there's no reason for them to stop unless people start boycotting it. So good on them. It's really hard to it's really hard for a lot of people to spend their money seeing the long-term results. Like people were saying, Amsa could get paid for the rest of his career for what he raised at Summit. Well, people would think he's going to go to tournaments anyway. So why would they do that when they could see him immediately go to this one tournament right now? So that's why people spend their money on that. But I don't really have much of a say on it. Doesn't bother me that much because it's their money. They can spend on what they want. So that's how I feel.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
And Hassel, maybe you have a unique experience with this because you come from the game where the compendium concept even originated. So.
Well, I don't really like the compendium thing. I liked it in Dota because in Dota there was an in-game reward for spending money, so you would like spend money and you would get something in game. That's why I don't think it really works in things like Smash, where there's no like I can spend money and get like a certain skin or something like that, or I can do whatever. So I just don't think it works at all in Smash, but people will pay for it, so like good on Summit people for using it, I guess. But I don't spend any money doing it. I don't get it.
Yeah, my perspective is exactly as I sort of like hinted at the beginning. Like what I'm really concerned about is, well, okay, so maybe speaking beyond what's already been brought up. My big issue with the Summit is sort of like on a general philosophical level. Like what does it mean? Like when you say that like people can spend their money however they want, so you can't judge them. Like, So that's fine. I don't judge anybody who spends money on the Summit, but like then you have to sort of ask yourself like, why did Summit even offer it in the first place? Like the sort of, I don't really want to call it ethics or morality because it's like a really sort of shallow situation, but the sort of moral weight lies on Summit, like beyond the Summit, because they're the only ones who can, like, it's not like an infinite supply. Like they're a monopoly. Like they get to decide whether or not the product even exists. So like the fact that they put it out there at all, like it's a good business decision, but like it means that, but that also means that like, I don't know, there's like all of the Twitter discussion was essentially like, well, you know, it exists and people buy VIP passes and people buy products. So like, who are we to judge? But the issue is that the product only exists in the first place because Summit says it does, right? So like,
I mean, what you're getting into, like the ethics of capitalism, basically, which as much as I love to discuss, is probably beyond the scope of this podcast.
yeah.
But I mean, yes, these are sort of important questions about this as well as.
Also, I can
a lot of other
completely
things.
judge anyone for what they spend their money on. If you're buying CP in your free time, believe me, you're being judged. Okay, I can don't buy CP. I will judge you, and I'll probably call the police while I'm at it. So, yeah, that there's extremes there that don't hold up in that. But yeah.
All right, so we need to. Well, we have a little bit more time to spend on Summit. So all right. So here's the invited players: Armada, Mango, Mutaking, Hbox, Plup, Leffen, Axe, SFAT, Shroomed, and Wizrobe. And the people who were voted in were Hax, Crush, Blea Jello, Mike Hayes, S2J, AMSA. So
Blea Jello, wow.
Blea Jello got voted. This is what
look,
I'm.
dude, Wizrobe didn't get in, or Wizrobe like got in through skill.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to tell me he didn't get in. I was like, what?
Wizrobe got in through skills, so they like, you know, they needed like a Florida person to back, and Blea was the only candidate that wasn't already getting it, like because.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Kobold didn't opt in, so Kobold didn't opt in, right?
Oh.
And Hbox is already in there. Plup's already in there. Wizrobe got in through skill. ESAM doesn't want to be in there.
ESAM was at a summit, guys. Remember that. ESAM was at a summit. Oh,
okay.
Christ.
So I mean, like, I think first off, I think this player pool is really exciting. There's actually a lot of like really, all of these players are really good, and they're also not. Like the only person who's maybe who's out of place is Blea Jello, obviously.
I don't know. I think Hax is the anomaly here.
Didn't Hax say he was going to play Falcon if he got voted?
Really? Oh,
yeah.
That's not good for one.
His,
I think I heard he said he was going to duel, like he was going to keep it an option.
Okay.
Two,
he's just not going to do it.
He's definitely been ups and downs, but he also did beat Crush last time they played.
Oh, did he really?
Straight up, yeah. Game 3 wasn't
okay.
that close.
Chu didn't get in though.
Good, thank God.
Good, thank God. He eats onions.
Yeah, anybody who eats onions.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I wanted Chu to make it in for his gameplay, but I hate the like messing with your body or doing really stupid things getting a summit. I hate that. I didn't want Mike Hayes to shave his beard. That's gross. I don't know. Just don't do stuff like that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Okay, yeah. So we have the intel states that he's playing Fox at Summit and Falcon after the Summit.
He's just not gonna do it. He's gonna be no, just kidding. And everyone's still gonna love him.
Yeah, because Hack's never grinded one out before, right?
Never.
Out of these 16 players, we have a little. So we only have this much time, like a little bit more time to spare on the Summit discussion. Like, so who do we expect to be a dark horse? Like, who could unexpectedly do well? Again, the players are Hax, Crush, Blea, Mike Hayes, S2J, AMSA, and then the 10 that are invited are Armada, Mango, Mewtwo Hbox, Plup, Leffen, Axe, SFAT, Dewan, Wizrobe.
I mean, is AMSA supposed to do well? That's the thing I can never really tell.
I mean, I don't think so, but
you never really know. I mean, AMSA definitely. I mean, I feel like he'd have to be in your dark horse list at least. I mean, he could beat like 4 people in a row. You have no idea.
Yeah.
Crush, depending on how he's playing, for sure. He's shown it. I mean, he could have. He arguably could have / should have beaten Mango twice this year.
Yeah, both times, definitely.
The last one was Shroomed, who's really good anyway. I mean, I've always thought he's amazing, but he always, people don't think he's that great.
I think in this environment, when he's comfortable and he isn't feeling the GBs or whatever, he can do it.
Yeah, I think he could too. Those would be my 3 I'd pick.
Yeah, dark horse picks from the rest of you. if it's not AMSA, I guess.
I mean, wasn't Mike Hayes having a really good year earlier or something?
Yeah.
It kind of fell off.
I feel like
a
he was
bit,
having a bad year, but maybe not.
Mike Hayes is like consistently improving his level. Like his range of losses and like his range of like his highest win is not increasing rapidly, but his worst loss is like slowly moving up.
Mm.
He's the poster child of consistent like results, basically.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's about it, right?
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a Plup Armada rematch, hopefully.
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
yeah.
that would be good.
Hopefully.
5 games of Fox Sheik from Armada Plup.
What is the opening character picks?
It's gonna be
double
Sheik
binding.
all 5
I
games.
think it'll be Armada. I mean, I think it'll be Peach again.
I think it'll be
Start
Peach.
Peach.
I think Armada played terrible in that set at Big House, but Plup was playing amazing. So like it was just hard. Like it's just hard to tell.
Although if Armada loses game 1, the Fox is coming out game 2.
Oh,
He's
100%.
not waiting for game
Yeah.
3 this time.
He's not messing around.
It will never come back.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
he'll never come back after that. It's like
He'll
how
never come
he
back.
got lost to Leffen once with Peach in a
Yeah.
set, and he's never again.
Well, dude, Armada's Fox is absolutely insane versus Sheik, man. It's unbelievable. Like just
He's way
watch how
too
good
good
he is at
against
that
that
matchup.
character.
It's insane.
Let me
Hey.
ask you though, if he's ahead, if Plup is ahead in the counterpick war, will Samus come out against the Fox?
100%. Yes.
Okay.
Mm.
I don't think the Samus will beat the Fox.
Interesting.
Honestly, I think the way
Oh.
Armada plays is very good against those guys.
Oh
Samus is
yeah,
very
he's so good
similar
at back airing and so
as
good.
silly as it sounds, Samus is very similar to Sheik in a lot of ways. The way she can be played, at least the way her range works, the way you bait out her moves as Fox, it's there's a lot of similarities. You don't want to get CC'd by either of them. They both edge guard Fox really well. The only thing is when you're playing Samus, you don't have to worry about the grab nearly as much, and you can edge guard Sheik a lot better. But from a neutral standpoint, it's kind of weird. It's like you don't really want to go near either of them. You kind of want them to approach you, and their ranges are somewhat similar. Samus got probably a little more, but she's slower. But I don't know. I think Armada style fits that style of character really well.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you give Plup FOD and Samus, like, that's a big deal.
Maybe.
But at the same time, you know, if he picks FOD, that's definitely Peach's best stage.
That's true. That's true too. He may just go Peach out of principle of being FOD.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Well, no,
weird.
he didn't last time though at Big House.
Yeah,
I guess
he just went
he lost
Fox.
the first 2, yeah.
Yeah,
So
he didn't have a
makes sense.
choice. Yeah.
But I think he also had an incentive to stay Fox, like to try to like go all in on Fox because Hbox was next. That's another.
That's
Maybe.
true too. Yeah.
Sharkz, Colin told me to tell you that I think Yoshi egg stalling is boring to watch, and I think AMSA's really lame.
Over the span of one set, Crush versus AMSA, he went from cheering to AMSA to heavily cheering for Crush. We were getting watching it in the lobby of the hotel.
Yeah.
It is really boring to watch. I don't get it.
I mean, the only reason that people like it is because it's a mid-tier doing it to Fox. If it was
the
like,
combos are pretty insane. The combos
like
are
Wobbling,
insane.
but like
It's
kind of
not
looks
like
cool.
Wobbling.
It is not like Wobbling.
But
It's
kind of
nothing
looks
like
cool.
Wobbling. It's nothing like Wobbling.
It's still boring. It's not interesting.
That's not okay. Whatever.
Rapid fire. Pick to get first and second at Summit. Sharkz, go.
Armada Hbox.
Okay. Castle.
Armada Hbox.
Alex.
I'm gonna
wants to say
pick what I
Armada
want to
Hbox.
happen. Mango Leffen. I want to say Mango Leffen
All right,
You're gonna be wrong. Why would you say that?
because I'm not playing
You
to
know
win,
you're gonna be
asshole.
wrong.
If I was playing to win, I would play Ices.
Blea Jello,
Kill yourself.
Hungry
Graham.
Box.
Wait, Playoff loves one though, right?
Yeah, and he'll
Okay.
beat Hungry Box in
Holy
game 10 of Grands.
Oh god.
Filet Jello Hungry Box.
I think it'll be Leffen.
Wait, who was the second one?
Leffen Plup.
Oh, whoa. That would be
Didn't you do statistics?
massive for the scene. Massive.
The winners finals rematch.
I mean,
Massive.
I think Leffen is so good when he's comfortable, and he is hugely comfortable at Summit.
He didn't
That
do
is
that well
like-
last year, though.
He didn't do that well last year because, like, I think that was one of his first tournaments back.
It
That's
was
a good
but
point, actually. I don't know. I'd be interested too. I mean,
And I
Prime
also
Leffen
think
is
Plup,
scary.
I also think current Plup and current Leffen are like those are the two. I think those are the two players that are the least lazy in their gameplay. Like when they're playing good, it just looks flawless. Like everything is covered. Like when you watch Armada play, like when he plays good, like he just sort of he's like really mechanically like tight. Like he's just playing risk reward the whole time. He's just like hammering you for just being unsafe. But like Plup and Leffen are like, I think they're really good at like playing against the player in ways that Armada is. It's like hard to explain. But I just think that like I really value that a lot, and like in an environment when you're comfortable and like when you're just trying to like pit your peak melee against somebody else's peak melee, like those kinds of things matter a lot instead of like Armada like very like sound strats, same thing, like in and out kind of thing. But I mean, Armada's adaptive, and Armada's really good at like fighting the player.
He does play more rigid, though. That's how I would describe it.
All right, so Summit wrap up. That was that. Let's talk a little bit about local stuff before we get on with the wobbling discussion. So first, Arcadian experience for those of you guys who went. Like, what did you guys think about it? Did you enjoy? Actually, we all went, right? So, did we enjoy our time at the Arcadian?
I had a
Yeah.
blast.
Yes, absolutely.
I had a good time.
The best event of the year, every year. Honestly, like really. I mean, when you're in it, when you're not, it's still the best event of the year. You know, you go into it in Arcadian, it's still so much fun.
Well,
it's like I don't know.
Here, so
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just cool seeing a tournament where anybody could win, but it's also kind of like that top, like that upper echelon, whatever, however it's pronounced, is just much wider than your local. I mean, you go to a local normally, and there's 2, maybe 3 PR players, and you're like, okay, one of them's winning. Maybe one of them doesn't do that well. Most likely 2 of them are playing in grands. Whereas at the Arcadian, I mean, we were doing predictions, and like nobody's prediction was the same, and nobody even had good predictions. And that's a really good sign of the Arcadian. I think this was a great one for that, by the way, too. I mean, who knew, man? It was so good. And Clem played the best I've ever seen Clem play in my life.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Arcadian sucked.
Durham should have won Cruz. We punted that about as hard as we could have. I should have beaten Sharkz. Clem should have taken 8 stocks. And we shouldn't have even needed Murdoch, really. But, you know.
I got carried.
So it goes. Yeah,
I got mega carried.
The dual Marth thing kind of worked out somehow.
Yeah, I don't know how.
But it did.
I had a really good time at the Arcadian. I didn't place, obviously, I didn't win, which was obviously my goal, but I learned a lot preparing for it. And I think my mentality and sort of like the way I studied the game and like the way I prepared for the tournament was really, really good. And I plan on carrying that through the rest of the season. I didn't play my plan versus Luigi, and I didn't have a punish game against Falcon, so those are the big reasons why I lost. But like, I mean, like, I'm fine with that. Like, I'm fine with it. Feels a lot better to lose to not preparing well, like inside the game, as opposed to losing to mental self. Like, I remember Graham and Hassel in commentary talking about how I'm easily tilted and like how it's easy to kind of set me off mental balance. But I think I had great composure the whole tournament, and I don't know if that was visible in my play at all, but I certainly felt a lot more composed.
That's a good sign for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you looked good for the most of the day. It was just like right at the end when you lost, obviously, that didn't look as good.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was talking to you about this, but it's not like you had close sets leading up to winners finals, really.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of, I mean, it's easy to overlook that and say, well, you're supposed to win those sets anyway, but like a lot of good players.
Like he played Vianney, and Vianney got what, 3rd? So
Fourth.
Vianney got
actually
4th.
Yeah,
he got 4th. Yeah. So like, it's not like he was supposed to win it. He still beat someone that was good.
He beat Barracuda pretty hard. Who lost last stock last hit?
He got 7th or 5th. Right?
Barracuda lost last stock last hit to Bane, and he had he's some real reasonable Johns, like reggae blasting.
That was terrible.
That was really bad, actually.
He got the reggae room.
Yeah, it was well. It was a wedding.
Yeah,
It's
that
the
was-
reggae.
Yeah.
That was
It's a
actually
reggae
really
wedding,
bad. It
actually.
was loud as fuck.
I mean, I thought they did a really good job making the venue space work, given
Yeah.
what they had to work with.
Right.
But it was kind of ridiculous that like we were playing in 2 hallways and then one
Actual
sort
room.
of main room, right? But
Yeah.
I think
That wasn't Dylan's control at all.
right, yeah, I think he did a really good job, given that that was kind of sprung on him. But it just sucked that people had to play sets, while this wedding party was like walking through the hallway right behind them.
Yeah.
And they're not going to know what's going on, so they're kind of going to be bumping up against you and like looking in and trying to see what's up. So that was just unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we move on from the Arcadian thing, I really wanted to give shout outs to Vianney and Bane. They really showed up. Like, I don't think anybody really expected them to look as strong as they did and play as strongly as. I mean, I knew Bane was good, but like I just wasn't sure how he was gonna do under like the Arcadian is just totally different. But
I feel like pretty much other than you and Beef Tip, the top 8 was like people who before the Arcadian were predicted, oh, these people could do well, but they're not like the safe picks were pretty much you, C-Mac, Pelipper, who didn't make Kakame, people who didn't actually get there.
Yeah.
But Clem, Vianney, Bane, to a lesser extent Colin, and like Dylan were sort of like, it's not surprising. Well, yeah, but
yeah, he was expected to get top 8.
Yeah, the seeding
that's
says
true,
that he was
actually.
4th.
He was seeded to get top 8.
What do you
All
think
right,
about
so we'll
the seeding,
throw
Graham?
the seeding had issues, obviously, but looking back through the bracket, actually, there weren't too many people who got like screwed by seeding. There were a few instances of people, but I couldn't see too many that were like
My boy Kakame got.
Yeah, I was thinking
shafted by
Kakame
the
is the
seeding.
main one, but
Shaft.
I mean, the Murdoch, Pelipper, Bane pool.
that was a hard pool.
That was
terrible.
terrible.
Kind of ridiculous.
Hold on, guys. I'll be right back.
3 people that should have been in top 8, probably.
Oh,
or was
Mitzi
it most
got
people's top 8s?
Oh yeah,
Any of those 3 could have been in
Mitzi
top
got
8.
out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, all 3 of them
I
definitely.
had all 3 of those in my top 8.
Yeah, I think I did too. What was what pool was Kakame in? I know he lost to Barracuda, who probably
Kakame
wasn't
was
seeded.
he was this Kakame's pool was the 1 was Papa Squat, Kakame was the 2, and then Barracuda was the 3. And the thing about that pool was Kakame was probably a 1 seed, but then if Dylan gets that other 1 seed, Kakame is like the highest 2 seed, right? So he should have the weakest 1 seed in principle, which I don't know if that was Michael. But then Barracuda being the 3 seed there, I mean,
well, it also
Barracuda
sucked for
just
Kakame because they were the 2 and 3 seed, and Barracuda has consistently been beating Kakame. They play like every tournament they're
they
at.
play.
Oh, really?
So he
Wow,
lost to
I didn't know that.
Barracuda, and then it pretty much got out and immediately played Pelipper in losers top 24.
Oh, that sucks.
All because he, had that pool with a couple other
the thing is,
questionable pools.
like, there were definitely some 3 seeds who were strong, but it was understandable because they were questionable. Like Bane as a 3 seed, I don't think was that
Yeah,
bad.
it's not really
It's
that
like
bad.
no one had really seen him do anything except me personally.
Yeah.
But
Same. No, I mean I played
like
on that for a while
Barracuda
too.
has been to tournaments and stuff, and he has like a resume.
Results.
Yeah,
good
so
results.
that was kind of a weird pick there, especially when like Tom's was a 2 seed.
Tom's went
That
0-2,
was
by the way.
interesting. That was really interesting too. I remember talking to Murdoch before, and Murdoch was like, "Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really even played in 2 years." And I was
Yeah,
like,
he played
"Well,
Falcon.
this will be interesting."
He played Falcon. The PC.
Yeah. What do you think, Tyler?
What about the Arcadian or?
Just the seating, I guess. That's what we're
Yeah,
talking about.
that one pool was crazy. The rest of it, like the Arcadian can get away with bad seeding to an extent just because of the nature of the tournament itself, because so many upsets are going to happen anyway. So other than that one, that pool, it's whatever to me.
Yeah, I actually agree. The seeding isn't super important in an Arcadian. Yeah.
But I feel like it's
Gar's
one
helpful,
thing it's one thing to say like, all right, we don't want to seed this event by Gar because we want to produce like good matchups or whatever. But the thing is that didn't really happen, or it didn't happen in the way that I think would have been like fair and balanced. Like it was kind of just like, oh, there were good matchups, but it was a result of some pools being totally stacked, and not like, oh, even though Chi's the overall 1 seed, it would be good if he played this person in winners finals because that's a set we want to see, even though Gar wouldn't have the seeding work out that way.
Yeah.
That would be another thing, but it kind of just didn't seem like that was what happened. Sort of like weird kind of like eye test calls on, well, I did really well against this player, so they must not be good, or...
Oh, yeah, eye testing is the worst way to see. There's a reason we have this thing that takes in data and adjusts values. You don't have to do it by the book. I don't think anybody thinks you should do that, but like, I mean, use it as a template and then adjust accordingly. Get rid of the regional stuff, fix things that
Choi made a
aren't
like,
detrimental.
seeding template thing.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
we're
okay.
working on a, Choi and Arun and I are working on a randomization thing, so
like
we'll hopefully,
this kind of thing.
yeah, like
skill
as in,
tiers, yeah.
we're
that's
gonna
sick.
That's a
we're
good
gonna
idea.
have something that basically like you can't be seated below or above someone. Like the randomized list can't have you too far above or too far below somebody who's within a certain range of your rank, and so that way,
It fixes
That's
the
really
concern
cool.
of-
Hey man, but the data doesn't work like that, man. I'm just gonna wing it.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have it out in the next.
I did
2 or
really
3
good
weeks.
versus Papa
Heck
Squall
yeah.
last time, so he's definitely not a 1 seed. He's gonna be like a 4 seed max. I bodied him, so he's a 4 seed.
Hey,
That's how seeding is 90% of the time, and it's stupid. I
well,
just don't
fixing
understand.
that, right?
What was really funny is over the summer, me and she and Zasa went to an MDVA tournament, and they don't have Gar. And it was really funny being thrown back into that where they just do subjective seeding, and everyone is complaining about it from the second the tournament starts.
Yeah, it was really.
And
Yeah.
it was just like, it made me really grateful to
Yeah.
live here. I was like, we don't do that anymore. It's nice.
Yeah, like I mean, even before we had Gar, I think when I was trying, like at tournaments that I was at, I tried to make sure to look over the seating, and like I would always be like, okay, like let's start with a PR, and then like from there, let's go with people who like did pretty well at the recent tournament, like, and not how I did against them or whatever. And it ended up, I thought turns ended up as far like it's how kind of how we did MKMT.
Yeah.
That tournament was seated
Well,
fine.
the thing about seeding by Gar is that all of the anti-Gar seeding arguments can be completely shut down with like the most simple basic thinking. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, oh, we don't want to seed by Gar. Oh, well, this person's been inactive, so they're all the way down to 50s. Cool, move them where you think you should move them. It's one person. You know what I mean? Everybody else is being ranked by activity, empirical data. Like it's pretty good. I mean, it has its flaws for sure, right? I think everybody.
But people like to point out the flaws as if that's the rule rather than the exception.
Rather than the exception. Yeah, exactly. And it's silly. I think it's just silly not to use it at least as a template and then work from there. Because at the end of the day, your perception of people's skills, every single one of us is relative to what we've seen, who we've seen them beat, when we've played against them. It's by no means objective, but the thing that is objective is numbers. You know, how are you going to argue with the numbers? So I just wish we were a little more open to using it and then maybe adjusting from there as such.
I agree.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
One day.
Did you guys watch Safe and Tylenol play in South Carolina last weekend?
Yeah.
That was so.
Yeah.
I was at work watching it, trying to get fired. I wasn't gonna miss any of it. I did miss some of it because I had to, but it was my favorite turn to watch this year.
Yo, Safe looks so crisp against that.
Don't get me started on Safe. Oh.
And the thing about Safe for sure is that people are gonna say, "Oh, Red played back as he lost to Knicks afterwards," but I think that was caused because of Safe playing so well against them.
Yeah,
they played
Safe
totally
just,
differently too.
Oh yeah.
Safe just beat him. Like
Safe looked like Leffen on FD. Red was not ready to play Leffen on FD. I
Yo,
promise.
you see all those Armada shines that Safe got?
Oh god.
yeah, those were nice.
Oh. I was so happy watching that. Tylenol too, though. Don't forget about Tylenol. Tylenol played like
Tylenol making that 3-0 comeback against Soap?
Tylenol, I think that was a great set of Fox Puff for a lot of reasons on both sides. I think it's a good set to watch for like why Fox ultimately just crushes Puff in the matchup, but also why it's like there's so much stuff that Puff can do to get around that. And Soap did that for 2 games and then just fell apart, started pounding.
I mean, Chris adjusted really well too. Like
he did, yeah. He started picking up on what was getting him killed and just not doing that.
Yeah. That was an awesome tournament to watch. Tylenol what's funny is Tylenol Milkman was so weird to me because after it happened, everybody was like, "Oh, Chris played so bad, and Chris was really defeated,"
both
and I
played bad.
understand that. But like, I don't know. I didn't really think most of those games, besides Game 3, were that. I didn't think Game 1 and Game 2 were that bad. I'll put it that way. I actually think Chris had a really good read on a lot of stuff, and I think he converted well. I think at the end of the day, what kept happening was on Dreamland, he would get him to high percentages and just not fish. Like Chris would get up throws at like 130.
Yeah.
3 times in one stock and couldn't finish it. And I mean, that happens because you're nervous, but that's also the kind of thing that you get that first up throw and finish it like you should be doing, and you just carry that momentum into the next stock, and it hurt him in the end. I think both those games were super winnable, and whether Milton was playing good or bad, I could care less. Honestly, I think Tylenol was playing really better than he gives himself credit for, I'll say, in those first 2 games. Game 3, it was clear he was starting to fall, but either way, kudos to them both, and kudos to them doubles for Christ's sake. Good Lord,
that was so sick.
They
bodied K-Pan and.
Oh really? I didn't see that. What was that?
That was beautiful.
Yes.
Who was K-Pan with?
Ossification.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. But then they got beat up real bad in Grands, but like I think that's because Red and Milkman are just so experienced.
Oh,
completely different.
MTVA is beautiful at teams. They're really good.
Yeah.
But so is Georgia, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a completely different set, but it's okay. I mean, they did great. I think they made us all really proud. We're really happy to see them.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I heard some not so great things about the tournament itself, so it's actually even more of a credit to Safe and Tylenol for doing so well in spite of the environment.
Can't be too surprised, I guess.
Wasn't that the first Fear tournament?
Yeah, South Carolina tournaments have all been part of the Fear series, where you're not only fighting your opponents, but you're fighting the environment because there aren't enough setups. Everything is late. And
you're in South Carolina.
And
the
you're in South
TOs
Carolina.
are all ghosts. Yeah, this Fear series is gonna be so.
I mean, is LSD even alive?
Oh
yeah,
all the players in South Carolina are toxic.
He and Smash Bob got destroyed by Tylenol and Safe, and LSD goes straight into the Discord.
Yeah, that was so funny.
That wasn't legit. You guys didn't earn that. I was like,
what? I did not see that. That is hilarious. Wait, LSD.
Well, because LSD said that because he SD'd like 3 times the last game or something when they had like a 5-2 lead. And then and he's like, you guys didn't earn that. Like, you guys definitely beat us like the first game, but the second game you didn't beat us at all. We just killed ourselves. I'm like, my guy, you didn't even take a game. Like,
I'd have been like, wow, pressing L and R off stage is also pretty legit. That's what happens every time you press L and R off stage. It's consistent. It's not like it's an RNG that killed you, you idiot.
Why would you go into the NC Melee Discord to say this? Like,
yeah,
you know who else went right to the NC Melee Discord when they lost? Red.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's
right. Oh my god,
he said, "I'll be back. I'll see you in Grand Safe."
And then he got beat up by Nyx. Oh my.
Ugh,
Nyx looks good, like mostly. I thought. I don't think Red played that well, but I like Nyx. He's really improving recently, in my opinion. So good on him.
It's weird for me to watch out-of-state Falcos because I have no reference point.
Same.
Yeah.
Like if they're
you
good
have
or
me,
not.
but that's really it. I mean,
right? I'm just like, well, this guy's better than Alex's Falco.
Barely, but yeah. I mean,
this guy's better than Alex's Falco.
Like this guy would get 5th at a Thursday Melee, but I don't know.
But speaking of Falco, it's pretty exciting to see K-Pan doing so well.
Oh my gosh!
Like he's looking really good, and even though he's
Georgia, Big House,
he did, and even though he's Georgia, like it's awesome that Atlantic South has another.
He also, I will say, recently, he hasn't been playing like as much of a wiener, which I think is really good. It's helped him actually.
His neutral looks beautiful right now.
Before
really good.
It was just straight wiener, but now it's like much better. His mix-ups are better. He's not playing like a wiener. I mean, I don't know what else to put in.
He said, he's made a recent tweet recently about how his mental health has improved a lot, so I think that has a lot to do with it.
That's good.
Yeah, I really have to give K-Pan props for. There was that streak where he would go to like Game 5 and just lose over and over and over again, and he just kept going to stuff. He kept going to tournaments, and he kept trying to show up, and it's kind of paying off now. And I think that's really inspiring for players around this level, where it's like, no one on the national scene is really going to take note of that. But going to every regional and seeing him there, continuing to like grind it out, getting better.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, because that's a really big hurdle. There's certain hurdles in your Melee career, right? And I think a big one, the most recent one for me was almost beating PR players, right? You're almost beating them, and it happened to me for so long. Finally able to like make that leap. You beat one, and then the floodgates open. You're like, I figured out how to keep my mind right in the end. And KP was having that at like the higher level, right? Like he's right outside the top 100. He's almost beating all these top 100 players, and he beats one, and it's just like he can't stop beating him now.
Yeah, he said he won 7 in like a month or since Big House, something
That's
like that. Something
crazy.
crazy.
One every week.
That's as many as I've ever beaten in general.
One
so
every
that's,
week.
That's nuts.
Yo, did Mike beat him the last time they played?
He barely, like last hit.
Yeah.
That's a W right there.
Was that at Sea of Dreamland last time?
No,
It
that was at
was.
Function 3.
No, they played at
Okay.
Dreamland.
No, Dreamland was
They
the
played
last
at
one, I think.
Dreamland.
Function
No,
3,
no,
Function
Function
3
3
was more recent. Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah,
they
Function
played
3 was
there.
They played at Function 3, and Mike, like, I think K-Pan had like 70, like, Mike was at 70, and K-Pan was like at 0 or something, and then Mike just kind of grinded it out, and
Kind
K-Pan
of how
dropped an edge
Dreamland
guards.
went.
Mike's scary.
Sea
Yeah.
of Dreamland, Mike went off a random knee.
Yep.
Oh, that was
That was
so
great.
funny. He
That
just
was
flew
great.
across the stage.
The way he explained it after was so funny too. He was like, I mean, he was just sitting in the corner and lasering, so I thought I'd throw a knee out there. Oh man, that was great. Well, it's funny too because he talks about how it was an accidental roll, but realistically, I mean, I think that knee hits that laser in place too, is if the laser doesn't come out in time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That laser
Yeah.
he I think went to threat or the wave dash. I think it hits a lot of options there. That's why Falcon's knee is insane. It lasts forever. And the strong hit comes out like it stays for
The
a while.
strong hit
too.
lasts for 3 frames.
Wow, it feels so much longer than that. Good
It
lord.
feels so
It feels
Oh
for-
my god, 3 frames. It feels like
Yeah.
it's forever.
As long as Sheik's fair. But then it
Yeah,
has
I
the
mean,
weak hit.
Sheik's Fair feels like it lasts forever too, but it only lasts for 3 years.
Wow.
3 frames is actually pretty
fast.
long, all things considered. It's not like that short.
3
in
shines,
most
low-key.
fighting games.
3 shines.
All right, so I was gonna talk more about locals, but
Let's talk about wobbling.
yeah, we should talk about wobbling. So, all right. So first, maybe let's start out with a brief history of wobbling. I
Yeah.
mean, like, so for those who don't know, like, we actually knew about wobbling like way before it became really popular. Like, I think I read somewhere on Smashboards that like it was first discovered around like 2004, 2005, and like the first actual like video of it being used in a tournament was, I think it was like Wobbles himself was using it against like, this Peach.
Wasn't it like Brinstar or something like that?
No, they played on Battlefield, and it was
Okay.
this guy called Idris's Pieces. He had a pretty good Peach. Yeah.
It's a great thing.
So he used wobbling against Idris, and then like after that, Wobbles and Chu started popularizing the technique. So like I think Wobbles did it in Evo. He did it a lot of like he kind of shot up his PR that way. He like just did a lot of it.
Well, now that's a large gap between 2006 and Evo, and that history to me is kind of fuzzy. I haven't studied it enough.
I mean like not just at Evo. Like there was like a whole during that whole span of time, like Wobbles and Chu got better and better, and but they were like using wobbling the whole time.
Were they?
Yeah, they were.
Okay.
But like the reason why you didn't see it all the time is because TO started to catch on, and like I think I want to say like around 2010 or 2011, like TO started to ban it. Like it was probably right around when Brawl came out. Like they were just like, yeah, we don't really want this at our tournaments, so they banned it. So like, or like some of them did. A lot of like the ones in Texas were kind of conflicted. Like generally
Most TOs.
more liberal rule sets, like the ones in Midwest and the ones in the South, those tended to allow wobbling, and more conservative regions like the West Coast and like the East Coast tended to ban it. And so that's why like Fly just likes ice climbers in general, but like that was why Fly was like fine with having wobbling banned and like did well at Big House.
A perfect player, you could say. The perfect player.
Maybe
the beauty
so.
of Melee.
But yeah, so I mean, and so it was like, so there was this whole weird ban, not ban inconsistency thing. It started shifting towards ban all the way up until Evo 2013. Like Evo 2013 was when we actually had a big debate about unbanning. Like the whole community consensus at that point was, let's just keep wobbling banned. And then Evo happened, and like Mr. Wizard made the executive decision to unban, and I think Apex was still around then, so Alex Strife made the call to keep it unbanned, and because like everything was centered around Apex and the Apex circuit, people just conformed to leaving Wobbling unbanned.
I'm curious about that. Those two TOs, I'm guessing, are not Melee players. And was the reason that
Mr. Wizard is not a Melee player, and Alex
Mr.
Strife,
Wizard doesn't like Melee.
Alex Strife started with Melee.
Yeah, I thought Alex Strife did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he hosted the first series of tournaments in New York to get a whole like 6 weeks consecutive 100+ mana tournaments.
But was their reasoning roughly that it's in the game, and therefore we're gonna like what? Why did they decide that?
Alex Strife unbanned because he was always one of the first proponents of FGC/Smash intersection, and so that was one of the sort of like.
It was like FGC has infinites. This is an infinite.
Well,
yeah,
I think it was
basically.
more so that Evo.
In the FGC,
like Evo was a thing that kicked it into.
And I'm pretty sure Mr. Evo just doesn't care. Mr. Wizard doesn't care.
He doesn't care about a lot of things. He doesn't care about keeping consistent.
He doesn't care about fighting games. Like,
there's this one Evo where like at 9 a.m. they ran 2 out of 3 for pools, and later on in the day when they decided that they had more time than they thought to run pools, they changed it to 3 out of 5.
That's my boy.
That's what happened for Marvel. And like the people who did the 9 a.m. pools, they're like, so what the fuck are we supposed to do? And they're like,
that's terrible.
Hold that L.
Running 2 out of 3 for Marvel is trash.
Yeah, that was during the year.
Nobody does that.
Yeah.
So fucking stupid. Yeah, we won.
It's just a bad time.
Yeah.
But
okay.
yeah, so that's kind of the history of wobbling. Like it's always been like, so for people who think that like we've always had a static stance, we haven't. Like we've always fluctuated on it. Like we've always been in contention about this technique because how particular Melee is, like, and how kind of intricate all the different parts of the game.
Do you know when Juggle Guy allowed it?
He allowed it for 4.
It was 4, I'm pretty sure.
4?
Yeah. I
think it was 5 because I remember thinking, oh, now I can go to Big House.
I couldn't go before. I wasn't.
Wait, let me look at this.
I stopped myself.
Yeah, it's he unbanned it for Big House 5.
Yeah.
All right. So what year was that?
Wow. Big
that
House
was
4
in
Wobbling Bane.
2015.
Big House 4 was one of the hypest tournaments of all time.
So as far as I'm aware, he was like the last holdout.
He was the last holdout. Yeah.
Okay, so to be before 2015, there was no general consensus among major TOs to ban wobbling or to not.
Well, he was the only holdout.
Yeah, I would say
he was the only holdout until 2015.
Yeah, at 2014, it was almost completely wobbling is allowed. I would say at that point. So from what I remember, at least
2014. Okay.
Yeah. And again, it's because Alex Strife was trying to organize this. Like he was still kind of prominent in the scene then. He was trying to organize the circuit, and like part of that was having unified rules. And so as part of that,
we do use the Apex rule set. So I mean,
still, yeah,
still.
I mean, I think I'd advocate for people to use Genesis rule set nowadays, but that's not it either.
Doesn't the Apex rule set still have Congo Jungle in it?
It does.
It does for teams. Yes.
At Chapel Thrill's Durham Bulls edition, someone counterpicked that against me, and I was like, okay, this won't be that bad.
For teams or singles?
Terrible. No, for teams.
That
stage is
terrible.
Garbage. It is so bad.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It was the auto ban at Tizzle's tournament for me and Tiger. We just banned it every time, except for versus you because I knew you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, you had the hard read. You were like, I'm pretty sure Graham's not gonna pick the stage. I just know him. He won't do it. And you were right. It's garbage. But
especially as ice climbers.
Oh, I bet.
Horrendous.
There's no public character that could ever.
Can both climbers go in the barrel?
No, only one.
Oh yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, only one.
So the thing about that stage is that like there's slopes on it, and if Nana does a wave dash on a slope, there's a good chance that she'll just jump instead. So which is why you see on Yoshi's a lot of times Nana jumping on the slopes. It's because the game she just jumps at wave dashes. Yeah.
So
should fix that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So now we've again like just reiterate. I only brought this whole history thing up to show like the viewers at home that like. It's never really been set in stone, and in fact, we were trending towards banning it until outside influence came in and now we're sort of grappling with the reality and difficulty of
The reality of wobbling.
Yeah.
The reality.
So, so I mean, we should sort of start by maybe talking about how we feel about wobbling, like, and as a mechanic. I mean, does anybody here like wobbling aside from Tyler?
Well, I don't enjoy the act of wobbling, but to me, wobbling feels the same as resting in terms of watching. It's like the one-hit kill that you're kind of waiting for, and I like that mechanic in anything. So
that's interesting. Okay.
That is interesting. There's still an extra step to getting rested more often than not, right?
What exactly what I mean by the extra step?
Well,
like
I think
setup
it's
for it?
it's Hbox view, right? So I get up thrown first, is what I'm thinking.
Yes and no.
Yeah, but there's grab setups.
At the high level, yeah, you really should not get raw wobbled unless you make a huge mistake.
Okay.
And then foxes, except Mango, are getting better and better at getting out of the grabs, and it's kind of terrifying. It's getting really scary to do grab setups on anything now. You have to basically try to raw wobble and hope they're not good at mashing. And when they're good at mashing, man, it's tough.
Okay. Anybody else?
I mean, I don't really see it as a one-hit KO because you're doing all the, you grab them and you have to do the grab setup into the wobble, and then you're constantly wobbling the whole time.
Yeah, that's the sucky part. I hate the act of wobbling. That's not
Like,
very
honestly,
fun to me. I wish they just blew up.
I talked about this in Discord when we were talking about it, but I kind of just wish it just insta-killed.
Yeah.
Like, you just flew off the screen.
I mean, you can insta-kill yourself by pausing.
I'd rather see that happen.
Yeah,
but
I wish
ICs
more
don't
people
like
paused.
if you pause.
No, I do. I love it. Pause every time off the stage.
Every time I play in ICs, they turn off pause, and then I have to return it back on.
Yeah,
and then I have that awkward war.
Well, yeah, because as far as I'm aware, there's no rule that says pause has to be off. It's just that
there's a rule that you get punished for pausing.
Right, if you pause the game, so if you turn it off, your opponent turns it on. There's actually no real resolution to that.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Right, for whether pause is on, which is ridiculous.
I think when ICs get a wobble, all of their buttons should light up, and they have to play a game of what's that game where you press the buttons in order? It's like Simon Says, kind of. You know what I mean? It's like you hit BA, and the next time it's BAY, and then it's BAYX, and they have to do that through the whole thing. And like once you achieve that,
it activates a mini game.
I'll be down with that.
That's tight. That'd be awesome. Although in reality, I mean, I've kind of talked about this a few times recently. I do think that would be the one character I would kind of change a lot in Melee 2, which is never coming, but Melee 2. I think they'd be really cool with a revamped punish game that did involve a lot of the similar mix-ups and stuff, but maybe even if it was more guaranteed than an average mix-up, because they're not a great character. So to make up for that, but there's still some counterplay throughout the punish game, like every other character in the cast has.
Right. So we're gonna talk about alternate ICs setups in a second, with Tyler, because we're gonna talk about PM ICs and how they.
Yeah, let's go.
So maybe we should talk a little bit about what is it that we don't enjoy about wobbling? Because I think Jungle Guy actually outlined it really well in his post. He has a post on Melee on me.
Well, here's what so the comparison between wobbling and rest is that's probably the closest comparison in terms of a one-hit punish kill kind of thing.
Yeah.
The difference though is that if you rest and you miss, a lot of the times you're just dead. It's a very high risk thing to go for that. Yes, there are guaranteed setups, but there's more attached to pushing down B as far as, do I really have this? Versus with ICs, you can kind of just spam Z. And if you miss a grab,
can still crouch cancel. If they miss a grab, right? That.
Right, yeah, you still have that available. And it, yes, there are puffs that play where they just only rest. It's just all about resting. They have no neutral, etc. But they're not as successful because...
Well, it's not good. It's not good to do.
Yeah, it just...
That goes both ways. I mean, for sure. That goes both ways. One, the ICs that are just spamming Z are probably not as successful, but you're completely correct about the risk with a grab. Even at the highest level, where they should be killing you pretty much every time you do something like that, that doesn't happen. Whereas you miss rest, any level, you're above 30% for most characters, you are dead.
Yeah.
So there's definitely much more of a risk to throwing out a rest than there is throwing out an ICs at pretty much any level, even at the top.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of degenerates low mid-level play, which is why
Yes.
I
The
think
other thing, like
I think this is the big issue.
rest
Why
at
most people
0.
hate it. So
Yeah, rest at 0 is not a one.
it will not kill.
To be fair,
And
wobbling at 0
wobbling
is
not
like absurd.
necessarily, but
Yeah.
Sharkz has
But it
wobbled
can.
me at 0 after
You
I
may
have
not have.
been
Yeah.
pre-mashing.
Oh, really?
I
Have I?
He was
Let's
pre-mashing.
go.
There's no way.
Let's go.
I
No, it's
rested.
actually possible.
I
but it-
rested
It is possible,
and
yeah.
I was doing
Wobble
this,
percent's not real.
and it didn't matter. So
Yeah, and Graham knows how to wobble, mind you guys. He's literally labbed. I mean, not wobbling.
no,
Sorry,
I know how to.
he's labbed.
I actually
mashing, yes.
cannot wobble.
My bad. I meant mashing.
Oh,
he's labbed
give me
mashing.
5 minutes. I'll show you.
Yeah, it takes less than 5 minutes to learn how to wobble.
Yeah.
So Hassel actually, I think Jungle Guy talked about this post, and he said, was it read like it degenerates gameplay at low mid-level skills by placing a huge premium on the tech skill revolving around the grab game. Black and white interaction between non-top players, removing defensive options to the grab player and disproportionately rewarding the grabbing player with no regard to stage positioning or mid-combo mix-ups. So, like, do you think that's a big deal for you, right? Like,
that's an amazingly worded argument as well.
Yeah.
That covers a lot of points. I think the positioning thing was something I actually wrote down. I want to bring up because people talk about like the whole shine spiking, which I think is a really really bad comparison. Don't get me wrong. If you can compare Fox stuff all you want, I'm fine with that wobbling, but the shine spiking one's pretty bad because I mean I can't shine spike people from top platform. I can't shine spike somebody from the middle of the stage. There's more things that I have about that too, but that's a bad comparison. But I think that's a really well worded, just an opinion. I mean, I'm not going to consider it an argument for banning it, but it's a really good opinion.
I mean, the thing I specifically don't like, which is kind of touched on in that, is with wobbling, there's kind of there's no DI mix-up or something like that. Like, I guess there is before the grab.
Yeah, after
like,
it's
the
done.
mix-up, but like, it just feels different to rest to me, to where it does a DI mix-up into the rest, where I do a DI mix-up for the grab setup, and then I'm getting wobbled, and then I have to mash, and it's like, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but there's like this false sense of like, oh, I could get out. It's like,
it hyper simplifies character interactions to the point of detracting from traditional melee depth mechanics of stage positioning and DI. So, for example, when you get hit by Falco Shine, you can DI in any number of ways and factor in your current stage position to mitigate the risk of getting death comboed. But when you get grabbed by ices, you get punished 0 to death for one single mistake without any chance to interact defensively with DI or stage positioning in the midst of the combo. It takes away what makes melee so deep.
And I both agree and disagree with that. I would say until you reach maybe top 200 level, I completely agree with that. Wobbling is kind of ridiculously busted from low to mid level. It's but once you get to the high level, every time I get a wobble in a top 100 player, I'm like, oh, I earned that so hard. Almost every time, like, ooh, I can't believe I got this. Like, I deserve this reward. Honestly, I feel like that sometimes. But when I'm at a local and Beef Tip's like killing me and I get that last wobble on him, and I'm like, well, that was pretty stupid. Like, whatever. Not calling like Beef Tip mid level, but like just that level of play.
No, yeah.
Oh, you can call mid level all you want.
Well, I think that's generally a lot of it.
I call myself mid level, so.
I think that's generally a lot of it too, right? It's like, and the scary thing about that is like, a lot of people really like to look at these kind of things and say, well, I mean, Chudet's not winning every major, this guy's not winning. At the top level, they're not dominating. But at the end of the day, that's the top 1% of the community. Do you really want to, cater? I mean, some people do. Some people do want to cater it that way, but it almost seems more realistic to cater to the other 99%.
I think that's a discussion worth having. That is definitely a discussion worth having.
For sure, yeah.
That's not like.
I think the majority of people don't like wobbling. It's just at the top, like 1%. It's like, oh well, we just have to deal with it, and we body them anyways.
There's a lot of the top 1% that don't like it and think it should be banned too. It's a lot more common.
Well, like other than Mewtwo King, who would that be?
I don't know.
Because usually they just like don't care every time I hear it.
I've heard that PP is like he's not specifically for or against, but like he leans against. KK also does not enjoy I mean, aside from him being like a Sheik main or whatever, I mean he has a great Peach. So
yes.
Don't get me wrong, but like, oh, that's right, Sharkz. You played David at.
Yeah, he was. Wow, his Peach was amazing. It was a lot better than MacD's. I'll put it that way against the ICs.
Dang.
Well, I mean, Talonol beat MacD, right? That's my boy.
Yes, my boy.
In fact, he was the best Peach I think I've ever played. Would be
KK.
That's why I've been studying him, man. I'm telling you.
But
I'm kind of the opinion though that we shouldn't really cater to like low level over the high level,
Okay.
just because I don't think that's very good for balance purposes.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. It's a really hard thing to try and even think of a rule set around, right? Though, because
Yeah,
like
I mean, you
Yeah,
it
can't
is
just.
something that drastically changes once you hit the top level.
So
Yes,
let's talk
exactly.
about this. Like, how would you devise a rule set around what, like whether you're for or against, like you have to sort of agree on certain standards, like to be able to enforce that ruling, right? Like Graham, I think you probably you've talked about this a lot. Like,
Yeah,
it's not,
this is so we probably should have begun this discussion by talking about what wobbling is, because
Yeah.
it's sort of like, I think that it's like that Supreme Court justice who said, "I don't know what profanity is, but I know it when I see it," something like that. Like, because there was some court case where they were trying to define what counts as something being profane, and he said, like, you can't actually really define it, but I know it when I see it. And that's sort of what we think about wobbling, because in people's attempts, it's easy to say, oh, no wobbling. But the game has progressed to the point where people will push on that and say, well, can I pummel 5 times and then down throw a regrab? Can I use Blizzard? Which tilts can I use or not use? Can I do fair wobbling? I think that's a thing.
There's also like smash attack wobbling, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Right,
that's a one frame though. No one's ever gonna do it. That's the thing. I mean,
right.
but
the
it's
point
there. It's there.
Yeah, like, so it's hard to just say, well, no wobbling. In 2017, with like the way people play the game now. So even if you were to try to ban wobbling, the issue that I've kind of come up against is how would you write out what wobbling is? And I think Hassel has proposed you only get to pummel 5 times as any character, but mainly applying to ice climbers. You only get to pummel 5 times on a grab, and then you have to throw them. So that would eliminate the sort of infinite back and forth.
I don't agree with that, because the risk reward not the risk reward, like the value of 5 pummels is variable based on the percentage and also the saves positioning, right? Like so it's not as simple. Like, if the value of 5 pummels at low percent is not putting them substantially closer to kill percentage as it is, say, like at like 80 to 90, right? Like wobbling, like tilting 5 times or whatever, or like pummeling 5 times at 10% is not the same as pummeling, like, say, at like 80 to 90, when you can stop after the 4th pummel and F smash and get a reasonable edge guard, right? Versus like from 0.
Well, yeah, but that's like the nature of how percent functions in the game.
That's just kind of how every other character has to play the game.
Right, like,
okay, I see.
Rest at 10% won't kill a lot of characters.
Sure.
But
I would
that's
say
part of why you wouldn't go for it.
like that kind of a ban, like only 5 pummels, I would definitely keep playing ices. I'd be totally fine with that. The biggest problem with it is at lower percent. I know I would definitely go for a DI mix-up regrab setup into another 5 pummels until I know I can kill them off of it. And the one bad thing is just kind of with the nature of ices, it's very possible when trying to do maybe another down throw down air after your 5th pummel that you make Nana do an extra like tilt or maybe a pummel by accident, and then what happens?
Right.
It's like accidentally did something illegal that's in the game that couldn't really, that was oops.
The one thing I did say was that it only counts Popo's pummels, so it wouldn't count Nana. It would just be your 5 pummels.
Yeah, but it's still kind of
still.
It would make
it's
it a little
so
bit
hard,
easier, maybe, but like I could definitely see a mistake being made, and the other guy would be like, "Oh, you're DQ'd, like leave." And it's like, "Oops, I made it."
Right, it's like, what's the penalty for that? And
enforcing
also,
it's
like,
the hardest part.
Yep. Yeah, enforcing, especially off a non-recording setup, like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a nightmare.
I think we should just get the nerds on the UCF updates.
Well, I would prefer that as well.
That would be phenomenal. Could you imagine if UCF did something like that for all characters? That'd be kind of hype.
I am very pro modding Melee in a very sort of like conservative way, but that does open the floodgates, and there are a lot of people that are like very scared of that. I don't think those fears are legitimate, but
if we can't get frozen,
if
we can't get frozen stadium, there's no way we're gonna get that.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I was saying was we should get rid of frozen Pokemon Stadium, and then we should get frozen Pokemon Stadium, and then people won't have an argument against it, right? Like people are gonna be like, oh well, Fox has an infinite on Pokemon Stadium sometimes, so wobbling's fair.
Yeah.
Once we get frozen Pokemon, that's out the fucking window.
That's true. But there's lots of people that are like, no, I don't want frozen stadiums solely on the principle that they do not want to mod the game.
Yeah, and that's weird to me. That's really weird to
Same.
me.
Agreed.
I think it's weird to going back to the pummeling thing just for a little bit. Like, I think maybe like now the percentage thing is debunked for me. Like, I think the other weird issue I have with it is like, who determines what is the appropriate number of pummels? Like, who do you leave that up to? Like, are we ever going to communally agree on what is the appropriate amount of pummels? Like,
Well, that's true. It is arbitrary. Like five.
No, I don't even think it is. It is arbitrary for sure. But I think the issue is that who are we putting in charge? Because realistically, I mean, you could string a bunch of data from. I mean, we have devices now that can determine average percentages, average punishes. Why can't we cater something like that to other characters? Average punishes. I think that's realistic, right? I mean, obviously, we're at this point we're bypassing the part of how hard it'd be to enforce. But imagine that was something that was enforceable, and you catered it to other characters' average punishes. And and you could. I mean, I just wish it was just revamped almost. You know what I mean? Like the whole idea of it being revamped and having so many, maybe more intricate mix-ups that were closer to guaranteed, but offered some counterplay would be a phenomenal game mechanic as opposed to being a terrible game mechanic.
Okay, so this brings us naturally into the next line of discussion. Like, we have a version of Ice Climbers in a
similar game.
Roughly similar game. That's
Kinda.
PM. So Tyler, how do you feel about the Icy's Punish game in PM, and like how does it compare?
Well, can you explain what's different about them?
Yeah, that's
So I'll explain the difference and the feedback and what I feel about them in general. For a long time, and it goes back and forth with how much I play PM, but I used to say I wish PM ICs were in Melee. But I'll go ahead. The big difference is that so no wobbling, of course. The hit stun and grab, like if you do hit stun, they don't stay in grab, so of course you can't wobble. Down throw, down air is also much worse in PM, and I actually hate that because like everyone gets out of it if they like breathe on their control stick. So that's kind of frustrating. But once you are at the edge, if they have you in a handoff, you should be dead, because what happens is that you do handoff, and of course it's tough because there's 50 characters and each one has a different weight class. But if you do a handoff and you get them to the edge, fair spikes and they are completely dead at any percent.
Cool.
So it at 0 for most.
Yeah. Wait, it's a true spike?
It is a true spike. So
Jeez.
it is actually fast wobbling. So it's kind of the wobbling we talked about. We want where they explode, but they do just go down.
But it's only by the edge, right?
It's only by the edge. So you have to grab at the edge.
Much better.
Yeah, it's a lot better.
Well, the value
and I prefer that because when I get a grab, I'm just gonna wobble. I'm like, oh, I wanted to get you here, so then I can do my thing. And that's pretty fun, but it's harder to get them there, except for some really stupid new techniques called the cuckold, which it's actually called the cuckold, where you throw a character, make Nana twist around with a pivot, and the game has it where for some reason she holds them, and then you can make her throw to your direction. You do it again, and you go across the screen doing that. It's like it's like a 1 or 2 frame.
Kind of sick, actually. See, like 1 or 2 frame link.
That's way more interesting.
That's way more interesting.
Cool,
and it's the kind of thing that if you know by the game, you're looking at it and you're like, I know that's not easy.
I could send you some Tech Boy and Fresh Giphies that y'all would like cream over. It's gross. So
I was getting so
it's so good with ices. That guy is crazy.
Who you said?
Fresh.
Yeah, but Tech Boy's better, I think, now though.
Oh
yeah. I mean, and I think that stuff's good because that's a really good punish, but it's also on a puppet character in a game like this that is never going to be that good.
And I think
everyone thinks handoffs are cool, right? Like,
well, see, you would think that. You're right. Everyone thinks that until they play PM for the last year and a half, and everyone's like, I hate Ice Climbers. So no matter what, ICs are going to be hated. Yep.
Well, I think
they hate it still.
This brings up something that we didn't really touch on, is that it's not even so much the result of wobbling that I think people have a problem with at mid to low level. It's how easy to execute for how rewarding it is to get.
Yes.
Like if wobbling in Melee was like a 1 frame link, or you had to push A at 500 BPM or something, then it might be a little. People would be like, "Well, that's fine. You kind of had to work for that,
you
right?
kind of had to earn it."
Right, but it's allegedly a very easy technique.
Yes.
So
and that's why it's such
it's not allegedly. It's
just
easy.
is.
Well,
You
I'm
could
saying
take
that because
someone
I
from
can't
20 to
wobble. I
it-
can't say it's easy because
you could
I
take
could
someone
teach you
from-
tonight. You learn how to shine there.
It took me 5 minutes to teach Austin's wife how to wobble. She was wobbling within 5 minutes of me teaching her.
Yeah, it's objectively an easy technique. I mean, you
Yes,
could take
very
from
easy.
20 to 150 by pressing A in a range of beats per minute.
The hard
That's
part's the
just-
grab setup, though.
the hard part's
at
getting
the
it.
top level,
At the
that's
top
the
level.
whole game. Is the grab
yeah.
setup. Once you get them, it's so difficult.
Yeah.
I mean,
I really
none
can't
of us
describe it.
none of us don't like sort of have any other opinion about wobbling at the high level, right? Like it seems fine at the high level, just everything below that is sort of
Everything below that is just degenerate.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think Juggle
I
Guy kind
don't
of hits it
disagree
on
with
the
that.
head. It just degenerates gameplay so much, and it's
So
not
actually-
degenerating in the fact that when you watch a lame icy set at the top level, and I say lame because that's what people like would think, right? I don't think that, but like when you watch like slow ices
Right.
matchups at the top level, there's actually a lot going on behind the scenes. Whereas when you watch it at this level, it's someone running around the platforms like, please don't touch me, please don't touch me.
yeah.
I don't really know what to do. If I air dodge by accident, I'm going to die. You know what I mean? Like that's what it is at the mid to low level. You know, so I think that's why it has such a negative stigma behind
So
it.
this is the argument that would apply at high level that I find the most interesting that Juggle Guy made that I didn't mention. So here it is. It doesn't fit the skill set criteria that we subjectively deem valuable to test in a tournament match. For example, we ban Hyrule Temple because the cave area of the stage creates degenerate character interactions that we don't deem valuable to test in a tourney match. And we ban Poke Floats because the side-scrolling aspect of the stage creates a non-interactive requirement to move that we don't deem valuable to test in a tournament match. Wobbling doesn't fit the bill just like these stages don't. What do you think of that argument?
I wish there was another character's mechanic that was easier to compare to.
Right,
Because I
that's
think it's
kinda
really hard to wrap your
too.
head around
Mhm.
that.
Stage
Don't get me
comparison.
wrong. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's necessarily an illegitimate comparison, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
there's definitely similarities, but at the same time, wrapping your head around this stage is degenerate because of this, and we do this,
Right.
and this character's degenerate because of this character's mechanic is degenerate because of this is hard for a lot of people. And I feel like almost if he had that, he could probably sway the rest of the panel a little easier. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a bit of a leap in logic there between banning stages and banning character
Characters.
techniques, and the
Yeah.
problem is that there is no other. The only thing I can think of is freeze glitch. That's like a kind of common character technique that's banned, but freeze glitch is sort of obviously like you hit it once and you win by timeout, which is
You know that the other person has to do specific inputs to get into that freeze glitch. Like I think it's like
No.
not actually it's not a one-sided interaction.
No, yeah, it is. It's
It is,
based off a handoff, yeah. So if Nana throws forward and you side B at
That's
the right
it,
time,
right.
that's it. So you basically had to go to a handoff.
Yeah,
That sounds
and then
easier
you
than
literally
wobbling.
just don't.
It's
you just
actually
time
kind of
out.
tough.
Oh, okay. So you
It's
have to
not
like he has to
tough,
fourth
but-
throw, right? So like
Yeah,
by the
so
edge, you could do it consistently.
Yes,
Okay.
if you got good at it, yeah.
Okay, that's funny.
So it's hard to like invoke that logic for a character technique. Not again like what Alex said. It's not necessarily illegitimate, but there's a bit of a jump there
Yeah.
that
Yeah, I agree.
opponents
I
of
just
that
thought it was, like, the
argument
most-
would
But
accept.
It
It's
is
the
a
most
very. I
interesting-
mean, if you
it's
can
the
wrap
most
your head
interesting
around it, yeah. If you can wrap your head around it, it's very good because it talks about how it addresses how we as a community originally have placed and set rules and the things that we have valued essentially.
Right? Why we
to be
banned
deemed to-
items?
why we banned items, why we ban these things. And that logic kind of carries over to wobbling because it doesn't really fit the narrative of why we've made these rule sets and why we play the game. But it is hard to make that leap, I think,
Yeah.
mentally I think it would be for people to see that.
Right. I agree with that perspective. I just thought it was I thought it was definitely just a really interesting like way to view the situation that it's sort of counterintuitive, but a lot of people don't consider.
Mm.
So, speaking of, since we're on this topic of weird arguments, I hate it when people say ices would be bad without wobbling, so we shouldn't ban it. Oh,
That's a
Lord,
terrible argument.
that is
That's
the
the bad
worst
argument.
argument.
I don't know if it's the
There's
worst.
not much to
What do you
say
think,
about
Tyler?
that.
Tyler, how do you feel about that?
well,
Ices can't be consistent without wobbling, in my opinion. At this day and age, I don't think they can.
I have a
Unless it's a
question
consistent
about
lower
that.
level.
a balance change thing.
Okay.
Would you say that was true if you were able to control the direction that Nana throws?
Oh,
at
that's
any given
brawl.
time?
That's brawl, so it's an infinite.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
really?
can do
Yeah.
handoffs
you can do that in
way.
Brawl.
After
Yeah.
forward throw, back throw, weight dependent, you do forward throw, back throw on all characters except for Jigglypuff, which you do forward throw, down throw on.
The thing about Ice Climbers and Brawl is that it was much harder, but they still destroyed the game. They ruined that game completely.
They made it really bad.
Yep.
Yeah, oh crap, what was the question again? I started thinking about something else.
It was about ICs being bad if you got rid of Wobble.
Oh yeah. I mean,
bad,
what would you think about if wobbling is banned? I mean, if it was banned, because it's not going to get banned, but in hypothetical land.
I mean, we all agree that like there's no like we don't like it as a mechanic at the only at like low to mid level, and even still, there's no real way to ban it. So like,
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. But would you entertain the argument that Icy's players, if let's say they actually decide they wanted to play Icy still, their neutral and whatnot would be developed in a better way? That's not developed for other characters. What do you think? Because you play ICs.
I've had thoughts on this. I think some ICs might play even lamer because they'd be going for these really stupid grab setups.
Well, lame's not the issue, I don't think, for most people.
Okay.
It shouldn't be. My bad. I think that's a terrible argument. I think if you're arguing banning wobbling because it's
would be
lame,
better.
Their neutral would probably be a little bit better.
It'd have to get better, right?
I guess. I mean, when I practice, I don't wobble like ever. So I don't really have a way to talk about that. But I kind of lost my train of thought here. Okay, so I kind of want to talk about Fly a little bit because it's according to this. When Fly played people, it was almost embarrassing how the other players didn't know what to do against it. And when people learn that, it just gets really tough for ICs in general. Like when I play Alec without wobbling, it feels impossible sometimes because I'm like, what do I do? Like at all. But you're talking about I practice my neutral against that so I don't try to wobble at all. I think it helps improve a little bit, and I know some others would get better at it, like the low levels, but the mid to high level, I don't think anything would change. You'd probably just see more ridiculous drunk sloth-esque stuff, maybe. But I don't think the only top 200 or 300 ICs I could think that would maybe improve from it might be like Boyd or something like that, kind of like the real wobble heavy. Kid might change his style a little bit. But not too much because that dude's just a genius anyway. At the top level where you see them improving, I don't think you notice much of a difference. Like where they're already at the top. I really don't think so. You would see them doing a lot of crazy, weird, not at all guaranteed 50-50 mix-ups. But that's about the only difference, maybe. They might just go for more down smash and back airs and have a better aerial game, probably like Chu does.
To me, what you said is a pro ban wobbling argument, if anything.
Yeah.
In some sense, not directly, but indirectly. But yeah, I don't know. I was wondering about that too. How you think, if you think that things would develop differently or not, because
I don't think it'd be as drastic as most people would imagine. I really don't think much of it. In fact, you probably won't even see him on stage that much anymore afterwards. So,
I think that would be sad. That's why I wish it was not necessarily just a ban, but a revamp of the.
Yeah, I wish ICs were different. Yep, yeah. I completely agree.
I think I missed it earlier when you were talking about PM ICs. Can you describe again how they prevented wobble? What did they do to the throw capture state?
Hit stun does not affect how long you're in it, apparently, or it either has a max. It's either one of the two. But I can talk about some things PM has that I wish Melee has.
The PM ICs, right?
Yeah, PM ICs, excuse me. Both ice climbers can grab the ledge.
Yes.
It is beautiful. Nice. It is beautiful, and you can do desyncs off the edge with it. So you can literally have Popo do tournament winner, and have Nana do Blizzard, and so she's blizzarding, and you're going up and then grabbing it real quick.
See, that's sick.
It's pretty sick. I love that. They can Nana reacts her. The way you can control her is much further than the melee, so you can grab her from all over these crazy places, and sometimes that messes you up because you're wave dashing and then she air dodges off the stage. But if you're good, you can just go grab her real quick and upbeat because you both grab the ledge. So those are two huge buffs. Also, in the middle of the stage, Nana only throws up, so you can always have your kind of guaranteed hit off of that.
Yeah,
you always know where it's going, which is pretty sick. If they had some of those things in Melee, wobbling would be banned so fast. I put it this way: if Fair Spike was in Melee, wobbling would be gone in a heartbeat, and I would be very happy. I'd be like, "Oh, this is sick! I love it," because I have a goal to shoot for. That's not just grab in the middle of the stage.
Yeah.
But like, I kind of sound like I'm talking against Wobbling, but I'll probably end up talking about how much I actually enjoy like the thrill of getting the wobble, which is
Oh, I'm sure.
awesome.
Yeah.
It
Well, I mean,
feels amazing.
that's not. I mean, to me, that's not really any different than most characters' thrill of getting
A
their
shine spike
goal,
or a rest.
right?
The
You
shine
know, like
spike.
you
Yeah,
get that
just
hard
getting
read
a
on the
kill.
recovery. You get that Armada Shiner. You rest them. You know what I mean? Like you get those crazy needles off stage.
Feels
I
so
think a
good.
lot. You know, I think that's similar. That something that
When
carries
you know
over.
you killed someone, that's
Mhm.
what's happening. I feel
Yeah,
like
that's
it's
Yeah.
not
not
that you
over.
wobbled them.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any like pro? This is the question I've had for a while. What are any pro wobbling arguments that
It's
you
not
know of,
our
Tyler?
job to like the game is the game. It's not our job to change anything about it. Like whatever we see is whatever we get. Like making decisions, sort of like it's like the whole total rejection of Juggle Guy's sort of like stage based argument where you say, look, like we inherited a game and we form a rule set only to the extent that we produce consistency in results, and anything past that is just not like welcome at all.
So-
But the thing is we've already outlined a rules. Like Melee has done that numerous times. We don't play with items. Like as much of a joke as it is in the fake documentary, that one guy only plays on 2 stock
items were
or
tested at the
2 minute.
like items
Yeah.
were tested at the beginning, like not just in like I'm not just talking about like tournament play, but like people started doing statistical tests on items. Like there's just too much like that was uncontrollable about them. Like the reward, like it's just not. It just didn't like we did this. I was in the brawl back room when they were doing this, or like I at least had access to an account that like was looking at testing while it was happening.
I'm jealous. I wanted to be back there so bad.
And like and testing happened like when for Melee and for Brawl. So like
I mean, I think the whole like it's in the game argument, really what that is getting at is that it's not like Brawl Meta Knight. It's not like Ices are 7 of the top 8 characters in the tournament.
Yeah.
So clearly, while this is a powerful technique, it is not meta defining. It is not over centralizing. And even though at low to mid level that produces some like really frustrating results, at the highest level of play, which is sort of like the idealized version of what Melee is, it's not so dominant as to be like a problem. It's
There's a
kind of
weird
really what I
slash-
think that's getting at.
there's a weird / funny rule that people sometimes bring up where like, what if you ban wobbling during pools and unbanned it for like top whatever?
I mean, I think that's dumb.
I think that's really dumb, but like I think it's funny that it gets brought up all the time when we have these wobbling discussions.
Can't
Like-
wobble till you get PR'd.
Oh yeah, that's our real. That's
That's
our
hilarious.
That was our
Melee.
fix. You can't wobble unless you get PR'd.
That's
That's
funny.
funny and yeah. So I don't know. I don't think that pro wobbling argument is great personally, but only because like the whole idea of it like getting rid of consistency of our results is silly because we were the results that crazy and consistent when it was banned. I mean we've had it banned before. We can look, you know what I'm saying, and
Well, like,
see.
This
By
seems
cons-
so different from now though. It'd be hard to
That's
tell.
true too.
honestly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like we can look, but like we don't know either way. Is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Unless it was actually banned, essentially. Also, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that just seemed like I can't think of a. Give me a minute, but I can't think of a reason as to why like that is even a good argument in the first place. Much less one that would.
No, it has to do with Graham's over centralized thing. Like you essentially don't want like the implications that you don't want to ban things. You don't, what is it, like Serlin's ban criteria?
Yeah, which was kind of fun. Like as a side note about that, I read David Serlin's book when I was like 12, like way before I played Melee or any fighting games or anything. And his approach to banning stuff is kind of like you should be as conservative as possible with banning things. Like you should really make sure. Because otherwise you can just be like, well, I got Shine Spiked and I don't like that. We should ban it. And what he said was, if you really think a technique is so broken, go win a few tournaments with it. If you really believe that this is so overpowered and so over-centralizing, go prove it. Go win a few tournaments with it. And then...
like, not just like any tournament, like big real.
Right. I mean, if it's that powerful, you should be able to do that. There shouldn't be any counterplay to it. And so I think the argument is that like wobbling isn't quite there, but the problem is it is kind of there at low level, but we don't see that as like real melee in a sense, which it's not. But I don't know if that's necessarily like a good approach to take to
like
the game,
right?
right?
Like,
Because you're kind of just saying like low level players don't matter is kind of what that means. Is that like if you go to TDML and you just get wobbled, like tough shit, you know?
It's kind of how a lot of like game designers balance, though, is they don't balance at all around the low level. Like Dota doesn't give a shit about low level players.
Yeah,
that's true.
They don't cater for them at all, and it's just because they make the game good, and then low level players want to play it because the game is good.
Well, there's no
Tekken's the
wobbling
same
in Dota
way.
either.
I mean, I could envision
Dota
a
has
value
tons
system.
of bullshit, so it's not really fair to say.
I mean, I can envision us agreeing on a value system, right? Like, it's not like that's the funny thing about that argument is that like I could envision like a community ethic where like we said, hey, the low and mid level experience matters just as much as the top level player wants, so we should make some sort of concession about wobbling, like. But again, it gets back to the whole absurdity of like, well, why would you apply rules for some subset of gameplay but not another? So
yeah, it's a weird topic, right?
Kind of like Sheik did as in chain grabbing, right? Why would you put more rules on the game than what's already there for a subset of the game? It doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, I don't know.
But going back to what Hi-Fi was saying, so then what would be the reason we even ban it? Like, why would wobbling be banned if it's not overpowered, right? And of course, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate because, there's some of the reasons. But give me some of the reasons why would it be banned?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best put together statement is the Juggle Guy one, right? It just covers a lot of bases, and it addresses a lot of issues. And he even had, it even for the top level, we talked about how it just kind of goes against the grain of what we value in Melee.
It's what you value
I think that's the big argument is because it's not trying to be like a logical, like, you're wrong if you think wobbling should be legal. It's saying like, yes, this is subjective, but it's what we deem to be important to test in competitive Melee as a community.
Yeah, that's the real. It's like I was saying before. Like that's the real value of making the stage analysis. It's like that we agree, like by not allowing items, not allowing stages, we agree that this is a certain vision of Melee that we want to achieve. So how much of a bigger step is it to take to ban wobbling? And for some people, that's really big. But like
for other people, it's like, no, that makes perfect sense. It's an infinite in a game without infinite. That's fairly easy to execute.
And I mean, you could even if it's so hard. Like I think a lot of people who are listening to this might have a hard time imagining that. But just imagine playing your friend like who has no experience with competitive Melee whatsoever. Like there are tons of people out there who think grabbing the ledge is cheap. Okay,
That's true.
There are so many people out there who think grabbing the ledge is cheap,
especially in the early days.
Right? Who think that using your shield is cheap, right? Who think that using C stick. I cannot believe the number of friends who told me that using the C stick.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Mars
broken. Can we all agree that we've had a friend who said Mars F smash is cheating?
It's unbeatable.
It's
unbeatable.
Mars Forward Smash is still cheating.
It's kind of unbeatable.
It is the worst move in the game.
That's our next episode is going to be about banning Mars.
But I mean, for the people who don't believe in that sort of subjectivity kind of skill set argument, like just think about that. Think about how it's not as extreme for us. Like obviously, like I think all of us can agree that Marth F Smash is quite a bit different from wobbling itself, but like the sort of analog there in terms of value setting and what you value in a competitive rule set, and like Melee that's the kind of difficult beauty of Melee is that like there's so many interactive parts and we're even able to have this discussion, right? Like it's in stuff like Street Fighter and like Marvel vs. Capcom. Like the closest like other fighting game analogy I can think of is Marvel vs. Capcom, where they had TAC infinites and like where they had actually just regular infinites period in Marvel 2, but like they didn't ban those because that's the thing, like they didn't ban those because they didn't have a choice. Like nobody was going to go fix it for them, and they also they also just had a different culture and a different mentality. But that doesn't necessarily apply to us. Like if we agree collectively that we value that kind of thing differently, then we're at liberty to ban it ourselves. And like,
Yeah,
That's
I
true,
guess. Why is it so different though than
Well-
me playing Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and I play against somebody and I literally get wobbled for a minute by
but
Dr.
I mean,
Doom
but
slamming his hands
Justin,
together.
Justin and Flash and like lots of top
Well, it's a
players are
different
now saying
community.
they would have banned it. It's
Oh,
a different
really?
community. Yeah, they
Yeah.
said they would have rather banned it. So like, it's not like all top players are on board.
Mm.
It's just that Mr. Wizard didn't want to do it, so now everybody else didn't want to do it, and they were like, well, you know what, we're just gonna.
Yeah.
The other thing with Marvel is you can't DI out of a combo in Marvel,
It
which is something like we value in Melee, right?
Mhm,
Is
that's
being
true.
is having the mix up there and being able to DI out and
Having
stuff. You
defensive
can't do that in Marvel. You
options.
just get
Yeah.
fucked. You win
Yeah.
off like 2 neutral interactions. That's how you kill a character. So like that's like the expectation.
The game's way too
So,
different to make
having
any
an-
comparison.
yeah, having an
But,
infinite in
yeah.
that game isn't really a big deal. Having an infinite game where we value DI and mix ups in those situations is
Mhm.
like kind of a bigger deal.
That's
I mean,
a good point.
For completeness, are there any other infinites in Melee besides like Fox Waveshine stuff?
I mean, the link jab, I'm pretty sure is
Link.
actually just an infinite. Like you can't get out of it on the
That-
tree. From what
I
I
asked him
understand,
at
you actually
set, and
just
he
can't get
said
out.
yes. McNuggets told me that.
Yeah,
McNuggets can verify, but I'm pretty
it's
sure
the
you
same thing as
actually
Pika
can't get
Jab.
out.
You can't get
Yeah.
out of Pika Jab.
Okay, yeah. All right. And those
But
are both
frozen
stadium.
Pokemon.
Yeah, right. Those are. Yeah, okay.
Frozen Pokemons.
Don't have to hear about it. Don't have to hear about link jab.
But I'm just like for completeness, I can't
Yeah.
think of another infinite.
Also, that kind of almost loops around, not those two specifically because they're just you mash A2, but that loops around to when we started off with the execution barrier, or the execution for the punish, and why it's so rewarding for so little effort and execution. Even the Fox Infinite is complete garbage to try and do with any consistency, well, unless you're up against a tree, obviously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I might
and,
be able to
like,
even get across the stage if I'm calm.
And
you
to
know?
be 100% clear, like Fox has a Waveshine Infinite on Peach, like that he can do, but that execution is so like it's borderline impossible to
There's
react.
And she
still-
has
there's
counterplay
still
after each
counterplay.
shine.
There
right?
is counterplay at the
She
end of
can
the day.
SDI
You
in
can
or
still
out.
DI and SDI and stuff.
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
still
you can
counterplay.
technically
For
do
the
it
fight.
regardless, but there
Mhm.
is some counterplay.
Yeah,
Where
that's
in
why
Marvel,
the
you
yeah, and it's kind of like the argument for the Falco. Somebody brought up Falco Peach on FD and how Falco gets grabbed in above 20% and pretty much loses the stock a lot of time. There's still counterplay at the end of the day through that
Right.
punish game.
Yeah.
It's something that we value. You value when you do happen to trick the Peach and you slight DI and shine her out of it, and everybody's like, "Oh
Mhm.
snap, that was a really cunning play essentially from the Falco." But
Yeah.
that same logic doesn't apply.
It's like iterated interactions though, right?
Mhm.
It's not like you get the infinite and then it's an infinite. You have to
Mhm.
keep doing things, which
Yeah.
maybe they're like close to guaranteed, but there's still room for error that with wobbling, like yes, you can drop the wobble, but
Also stage dependent.
right, that too.
Wobbling's not stage dependent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot
More
of
or less, for the
it's
most
not-
part.
yeah. You're right, more or less, but it's interesting, right? Because like I don't know, you stack up the arguments people have, and it is kind of hard to say. It's hard to ban for sure. That's why I don't even think it's worth doing, really. I mean, unless we all just did a thing as a huge community, but it's like there are a lot of pretty good, solid arguments against it, and
Mhm.
there's not a ton good ones for it that aren't just I'm old NC. I don't want to change my melee. We have all the technology in the world. Well, yeah,
My
we can
melee.
dash back, but I'm not changing my melee.
My melee.
The arguments are pretty bad. It's just get good and don't change my melee. That's really all you hear for the most part. Oh,
I mean, like-
Kakami had an argument in the chat that said Ices would not be played and the meta would stale even slightly, even if it was slightly. And I think
What are Ices keeping out of the meta though? What part of the healthy ecosystem do they contribute to other than simply being another character? Because you
Yeah.
could say like what
Yes,
people
you're
would
right.
say about if you ban Fox, Puff is the best character and is too good. Puff like keeps Fox in check or something like that.
I guess it
you could-
depends on how much you like character diversity. I mean, it really comes
that was his argument, right? That the character diversity would lessen.
which is or
and
it's not an argument depending on the person.
yeah, it does depend on. You're right. It's completely it's subjective, and it's like we also don't really know how many Ices would just stop. I mean, some could take it as a challenge.
A lot of
some-
people, yeah, I think a lot of people really do like the character.
A lot of people, yeah, I know the idea of the character is kind of sick. A lot of people may pick Ices up because they're like, oh, well, this doesn't seem like such a lame character to play anymore. That a lot of people have that negative stigma around, So
I think a lot of the people that would quote would be low mid-level players, which is the whole issue to begin with.
Yeah, I really think the issue's at low level because I truly believe after playing them at like a decently high level against the players that getting a wobble just feels so difficult, and the people that are good at it make it look easy because they're so good. And I really feel like that.
I want to make it 100% clear. Like speaking for myself, I'm pretty sure speaking for like the rest of the TP panel on this. Like we don't think that you don't have any skill. Like we
yeah, of course.
Yeah, like I just want to be like, I mean, to any potential detractors who may be listening, like we acknowledge at the high level, like it takes skill to get, like, I mean, and it does take some semblance of skill too at our level to get a wobble. Like that's not like the issue is not like getting the it's not like we're not getting outplayed when we get wobbled or like when the wobbles happen to us. Like we're not scrubs. Like we play.
Yeah, it's more like
the punish game is skewed.
Yeah, very skewed. It's like at the top level. Let's say Sharkz is playing, whoever, Kirby Kaze, and he, accidentally does some bad air dodge toward him instead of a wave dash, and he's wobbled, right? But that's going to be super rare, right? Like how many times is Pelipper going to accidentally air dodge?
A lot more than KK.
A lot more than KK, and he's going to die to a wobble from it every single time the same way. And that's why it's really skewed and disproportionately, a negative to the low and mid-level play, I think. I don't know, and Sharkz has a point. I mean, even at the top level, you probably won't see a lot of a drop off on the ICs, because they're still really good players and they know how to space their arrows really well. They're still looking for mistakes to take advantage of. There's going to be DI mix-ups that they now are practicing, and they probably already know anyway.
Yeah.
So I mean,
except for Chew. Chew's conversions make me so angry. I yell at the TV every time I watch him play.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's interesting. I think it's definitely something that should be discussed, or could be discussed, I should say.
I think wobbling discussion, like when it's carried out to the extent that we did today, like brings up a lot of interesting things that people don't really talk about, like such as this, like community value. Like that's the big thing that I think people don't really talk about, like community values. Like what goes into making a rule set? Like what determines whether or not you ban something, which Graham mentioned, like over centralization, enforceability. Like those are important criteria that like you have to consider when banning anything, and like. And also, like there is some, like again, there is some sort of degree of subjectivity. Like, how much do you value something personally versus how much does something else value, like personally? And that's kind of really why we have a community, is because we all discuss and we all kind of talk about these issues and hash it out. So I thought this discussion was really good today, and I definitely learned a lot more things about ICs, and I definitely learned kind of like an IC's main perspective that I haven't really sat down and like listened to like. Like I was surprised, for instance, that you said that like the play would not really change that much.
And that's of course my opinion. I have no idea. Yeah. We couldn't test that out, of course.
Yeah, but the thing is too, you also mentioned that there's also a chance that it just degenerates worse, the gameplay.
I had a theory about that recently, and I don't know if it's totally true, but I could definitely see it for some people.
And that's also not a reason not to ban wobbling either. Because I think an anti-wobbling, or a person who's arguing against wobbling, that's arguing against it because they think it's lame, is not someone I want to hear an opinion from anyway. That's a terrible reason to ban something. You know what I mean? That's terrible. Right. I mean, I know some people want to appeal to some kind of viewership level, but that's just silly, I think. And if IC's players started playing 10 times lamer because wobbling was banned and they had to play like so much safer or something because they were scared they couldn't get a kill off every single grab, I mean, it might not be great to watch, but at the same time, mid-level players are getting just along the same Kirby Kaze Pelipper lines we were saying earlier. That risk reward is still so much different. A grab may mean a little bit more to you, or less. It may mean less at the end of the day for both players. So it's interesting. It changes the neutral a lot in a lot of ways, even if it generates it, and not necessarily in a negative way.
And I got one other thing. I know we're probably running low on time.
No, you're fine.
But let's say the meta continues the way it is, and most likely wobbling is not going to be banned in the future. And I'll just ask this as a lightning question. Locals banning wobbling, since that was something that happened recently. Thoughts?
They just did that for publicity, so I don't. Yeah. I think they're very sensitive about that. So unless other people want to really discuss this out of respect for their kind of sensitivity.
I mean, you can just say whatever and just go on.
I'm a big fan of unified rule sets in general, and I think not having that is, even like for anything else, not even just wobbling, would not be good. I think you shouldn't have to like go from tournament to tournament and wonder like, well, can I do this here? Can I not? And it would probably be well publicized, but part of the reason that wobbling gradually became unbanned, like, well, if we ban it here, what happens when people go to this other tournament? They're not practiced against it. It's basically playing a different game.
Yeah. It would need to
So-
be a big wave, essentially.
right. Yeah,
The whole thing would
really
need to
a
change.
movement.
And it's out of the. I mean, it's probably not gonna happen. Let's be honest, all right? But it's definitely also not really out of the realm of possibility either.
It's a
but I don't know.
discussion we should
We
expect to
need-
continue having.
Yeah, we should get Frozen
Yeah.
Stadium first.
I think that's a
If
great
we can get
idea.
Frozen Stadium, I think we can ban wobbling.
So
Oh,
Rudy
yeah,
had a
I don't
theory
want
about
Frozen
this.
Stadium anymore.
We just need to work on getting Frozen Stadium.
The way you get
and then we're
Frozen
there.
Stadium is you convince Fox mains that it's a good idea. You make
Oh,
Fox
boy.
mains
Most
hate
Fox-
Frozen Stadium.
dude, most people I
Hashtag Fox
know
privilege.
think it's a good idea.
I don't
would
know
take Frozen
anyone
Stadium
that's
right
actually
now.
anti Frozen Stadium unless I don't respect their opinion.
McNuggets just said it.
Oh boy.
McNuggets
McNuggets doesn't
oh,
want
he
it 'cause he
said-
can do the link jab.
He
and
said I need my wobble. He said it in the chat right now.
This is the degenerate gameplay I'm trying to ban.
I'm just saying.
My favorite thing is when now I didn't know what it was, and I saw him jump in the tree and just roll, and I was like, I'm about to mollywop this guy. I just, I got wobbled so fast. I got wobbled so fast. I was like, was happening, and I turned to him and I was like, yo, is this real? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, do you have a kill setup off it though? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh god, thank you.
All right, so we are officially running around the 2-hour mark, but since we're here already and we have a little bit more time with Sharkz to close the show, instead of doing a game show, I'd like to propose lightning round for Sharkz. So I've asked each of the panelists here to prepare the most curveball, or not the most, rather just a curveball question in general. And first off, I'd like to submit the Ghost of Arun's question.
Oh.
What is your worst melee opinion? Or rather, give us a bad melee opinion that you have.
A bad melee opinion? Falcon feels like he's molasses. I feel like I'm playing in molasses when I'm playing with Falcon, because of his 5-frame wave dash. Like if you hear me talk, people think, oh, jump squatting.
4 frames.
Is it really? No way. It's
Yeah.
5 frames.
Did you say Falcon?
Falcon.
Yeah, Falcon is 4.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
not
wow.
as slow
Well,
as Falco.
still.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's still more
Doesn't
than
matter.
3.
It's not. So I base my characters off of 3-frame wave dashes. So I love every
Right.
character that has a 3-frame, except
You love
Doc.
Fox?
I do enjoy playing Fox, yes, but I can't play
Mm.
Falco. Yep, I hate anything other than 3-frame jump squats.
So you play Samus too.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, he
Yeah,
does.
she feels
Samus is
amazing.
chic.
Man.
That's interesting. You should sit down for a bit, kind of like how I've been doing with Peach, and pick a character like that and just stop wave dashing because they don't need it.
Well, the thing is, like, I play I play Pit and PM, and he's a 4 or 5 frame, and I just deal with it. But he's the only one I'll do.
Yeah, I mean Falcon, dude, learn to dash dance, and you don't even ever need the wave dash.
What's dash dancing?
Oh gosh.
This
Alright,
is
Alex,
so good.
curveball question.
Oh yeah, my question. What was your? And this isn't like silly. I should have been more silly, but I was all day
That's
and
fine.
came straight here. I wanted to know either what was your. Yeah, I guess what was your favorite wobble of all time? Like who was it on? What situation? Or was it the best person, or was it a situation, or both?
I can think of good icy moments. I'm trying to think of good wobble moments.
For you personally, right?
Oh,
Like, for
my
you
personal
The
wobble.
one you got and you just came. Yeah.
When I four stocked Waylon on Dreamland.
Oh
and,
man.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Famicom,
That
right?
was
That was beautiful.
Famicom.
Yeah,
That was
okay.
brutal.
Yeah, at Famicom.
So that was your favorite wobble?
That might be because that broke me losing to Peach. That
Who was your
ended
favorite
everything.
person to wobble then? Who was it? Was there like a person that you're like, what was it wobbling like Toph or something? You know what I mean?
Kaon?
Where you were like, oh yeah.
Kaon felt good, but I like Kaon. But I would like for
Probably Toph.
Toph felt really good. I'm trying to think if there was like a Peach that I beat or something like that. It's usually on
Iori?
Peaches. Iori felt really good at wobble. There's a
Yeah.
good number of people like that. Probably like Iori.
Jimmy?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yo, he kind of is though, low key.
Yeah, he's a weirdo.
Yeah.
Jimmy?
No, all my games with Jimmy were pretty fun. I never was like super like.
Mm.
I wasn't like, oh my gosh, yes. I guess anyone against a top 100 player, if I was beating them at a time, getting that last swap always felt really good.
Okay.
Hassel.
Graham? Oh, Hassel, yeah.
What's your worst anime/manga opinion?
Manga.
I know it tilts them.
One Piece is still my favorite manga and will forever be probably.
That's
a
not
lot of
even a
people-
bad.
That's not
opinion.
even a
a lot of
bad
people don't like. A lot of
opinion.
people hate shonen. I guess I'm around a lot of people. A bad opinion.
People who hate shonen have no souls.
I don't watch that much, honestly. And I don't. The thing
Well,
is,
you
I
could
have a
say-
lack of
you could do
diversity.
manga as well.
I have a lack of diversity in my
Oh wait,
manga.
you don't like Boku no Hero, don't you?
I
Isn't that-
don't like the manga of Boku no
For some
Hero.
reason, that's not an unpopular opinion nowadays.
I
but think
read
That's
it.
still a
I
bad
read it
one.
when it first came out and
Really bad.
didn't really
It's
care
still
for
it's
it.
still a terrible opinion.
I like Danganronpa. It's really anime and it's a pretty bad story.
That's not even a
Oh.
bad opinion.
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't watch
Maybe
anime.
maybe Sharkz has no bad opinions.
Maybe I don't. Maybe I just don't watch enough anime. I don't
All
know.
right, Graham. Last one.
All right, what would you rather do? Solo main ice climbers as they are now, except Nana randomly trips like she does in Brawl,
Okay.
including during wobbles, or
Okay.
play Bowser and he can wobble.
Oh, Ice Climbers in a heartbeat. I cannot wave dash with Bowser. I cannot do
no one
anything with
can.
Bowser.
Okay, well, what if Bowser had
I
a 3-frame
cannot-
jump squat? I guess.
Maybe Bowser. If he had a 3-frame jump squad, I would seriously consider that.
Okay.
All right. So we've gone on long enough for this episode. I thought we had a really fruitful.
Do you have a question, She?
Oh, me? Yeah. What quality do you find most attractive in a woman?
Oh my god.
Ooh. Openness.
Or a man?
I would say openness.
Okay.
Like being willing to accept like, oh, okay, you play this video game, that's cool. Like I'm all in.
Aw,
Like
you need
that's
a
pretty
Jan.
sick. I would love that.
You need a Jan. Yeah.
And I'd totally be supportive of whatever she would do too.
Yeah.
That's good.
I would love that.
All right. That's
Aw.
that's it for our wholesome time with Sharkz. I thought we had a really good discussion about everything.
a
Summit,
great discussion.
local, Arcadian. I learned a lot. So Graham doesn't have a Twitter. Alex, what's your Twitter?
At _SSBM.
All right. Hassel
At Duck Dota.
and Sharkz.
Sharkz_SSB.
And you
Follow
can find-
Arun also.
Huh?
I don't know Arun's at, but follow
I think
Arun.
it's Zen.
Oh, at
Fire
Zen54.
recently. Zen
Zen
54.
54.
Yeah, and
He's
you
been
can find
posting
me
some fire.
at Chi Just Chi, and that's our. His retweets are fuego. Yeah, he's got a really
Dude, that's so sick. I saw that this morning. Let's
Wow,
go.
what a beast.
Yo,
Alright.
can I make a quick shout out or
Oh yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
so my friend and our melee friend SSB Jukes is
Yeah, I
currently
love
streaming
him.
right now, and he is working on getting affiliated for Twitch, and he just needs a couple more followers. He is streaming right now. Is there any way we might be able to raid him after this is done?
Oh yeah.
Ooh,
so
yeah.
guys,
Can we
if you're
please?
check out
Jukes
Jukes.
is also a really good friend of mine. If
Heck
you guys
yeah.
are a great guy.
Jukes is
and,
cool. I like him.
yeah, you should meet him. if you have-
If I'm allowed. Can I link
It's
it?
already
Okay,
being linked 1,000
I'll
times. yeah.
put it in there again some more, and I'll do it a couple more times when we're done. But yep, thank
See
you
you guys
guys.
in Juice Chat, and thanks for joining us for another
Yeah.
episode of the Top Platform.
Thanks,
Peace.
all.
Like, we don't hate
Have a
you,
good
Icy
one.
Means. We promise. We're just.
No,
We promise.
I love
I do.
y'all.
love
Woohoo!
All right, see ya.
Thanks.
Bye.
I have no idea how to leave this thing. There we go.